CD4.
"While we have time, let us do good," she says. "The Japs are coming. Everybody's getting out. Stewart Highway's going to be full of buses and cars and army troop lorries. They'll be stuck in town for hours."
"What if they're not in town?" the night sky asks. "What if they're just at Aubrey's house, sipping moonshine in the old shed?" The thought of Aubrey fills Molly's arms with warm blood, and she tenses her muscles, and she bashes the tin against the rock so hard her gritted front teeth feel set to crack. This time, the box lid bursts open, and flashes of gold and silver spread across the dirt. Jewellery, necklaces, bracelets, rings, wedding bands, engagement rings, Victorian engagement rings, Edwardian engagement rings. Molly takes the lamp and runs it over the ground, her fingers scrabbling for the scattered jewellery and carefully placing it back in the box. More than 20 pieces in total. Diamond, amethyst, opal, pearl, gold and more of other people's gold, all stolen by her father and uncle, and stockpiled in the black tin box until they were ready to take the train to Sydney, where no Darwin loved ones would spot the sacred items in the shop window of a King's Cross pawnbroker. Here lies Thelma Leonard, 1813 to 1867. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Molly drives Bert into the soil in front of Thelma's stone, her right boot stomping hard on the blade edge. 4 quick shovelfuls. Not enough time to go deeper. Inside the black box, she sifts through the pieces. She remembers Thelma's ring. She remembers them all. A small sapphire in a crystal setting, the same square shape as Thelma's gravestone. Molly drops the ring into the hole and fills it in, flattening the dirt with 4 hard whacks with the back of Bert's blade. On the eastern edge of Hollowwood, amid a cluster of flat, square tablet headstones, Molly stops at the grave of Phyllis Quinn, 1865 to 1914. There shall be no darkness. There shall be light and music. When she reads the epitaphs, Molly hears human voices, as if the grave's owner is talking to her, and maybe that was the intention. Phyllis Quinn's voice is eloquent, a touch of Irish in it, musical. Phyllis played piano. Phyllis sang Irish lullabies to her children, and there was no darkness in the sunroom of her 2-story Darwin home. There was only light and music. Molly digs her hole, drops the flower brooch inside it, returning it to its rightful owner, the single pearl bud inside the flower buried with a single shovel load. "I'm sorry, Phyllis," Molly whispers. And Molly moves on through the cemetery, corner to corner, grave to grave, returning the objects Aubrey and Horace robbed from the dead. A pink sapphire engagement ring replaced in the grave of Sarah Hill. "To undreamed shores," Sarah says on her headstone. 3 turquoise balls like blue moons set into a gold ring go back into the grave of Julia Hancock, and Julia's words on her headstone are Molly's reward. "To live in the hearts of those we love is not to die." More life lessons, more messages from beyond. A silver enamel bird pendant for Geraldine Lamb. "Whither thou goest, I will go." A ruby and diamond ring for Eva Gordon. "We come whirling out of the nothingness, scattering stars like dust. The stars made a circle, and in the middle, we dance." Crystal pendant earrings for Agnes Herman. "Because I have loved life, I shall have no sorrow to die." A black opal ring for Marilyn Prince. "I am now deathless. I know this orbit of mine." Just words on red granite grave. Lessons. "I know I am deathless," Molly tells the night sky. "I know this orbit of mine cannot be swept by the carpenter's compass." Marilyn Prince does not lie. the night sky says back to her.
Walt Whitman does not lie, Molly says. Dad said my mum was always talking about that line on Marilyn Prince's headstone, and she asked anyone in town with half a brain what it meant. Someone in a mobile library told her it was by an American called Walt Whitman.
Molly flattens the dirt with Bert's blade.
My foothold is tenoned and mortised in granite, she says,
reciting more Whitman.
I laugh at what you call dissolution, and I know the amplitude of time.
And a voice in darkness adds to those lines. But it's not the night sky. The voice in the darkness is deep and muddled, drunken. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love, the voice says. And Molly turns to the voice, raising Bert the shovel to defend herself. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. Aubrey Hook staggers into Molly's lamplight. The girl draws a sharp, deep breath. Her uncle holds a single-shot .22 caliber rifle in his right hand, rests it on his right shoulder, wobbles it up there dangerously like it could swing around to Molly any second now. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, Aubrey continues, still reciting Whitman, that I shall be good health to you nevertheless. And he struggles to say the words with all the white spirit inside him. He's all shadow, his black hat and his moustache the colour of the shadows passing across the lamplight. Nevertheless, and filter and fibre your blood. And Aubrey looks to the night sky, looks to the stars. He points his rifle upwards, closes one eye to take better aim, then staggers with the effort. Failing, he says, reaching deep into his fogged memory. Failing to fetch me at first. Ah, damn it. He turns to Molly. Do tell me how it ends, Molly, he says, trying to be tender. Your mother used to tell me how it ended. She knew that whole thing almost by heart, and there were pages of it. Pages and pages, big words and more big words. Molly is silent. Aubrey staggers forward, closer to Molly. He burps, spits, snorts the air. Tell me how it ends, he barks, vicious and frothing, and his intensity makes Molly jump atop Marilyn Prince's grave. She turns her eyes to the headstone, then recites, Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere waiting for you. Aubrey giggles at this, and his giggles erupt into his deranged howl, that sick howl again. Something to scare the fruit bats. A laugh so chilling it might bring the black rock frog rock to life, make it hop away south with everybody else who's fleeing Darwin. Do you think your mother's somewhere waiting for you, Molly? He howls again. Maybe she's in the grass, he says. He looks theatrically beneath his boots. Maybe she's under my boot soles, he says, inspecting the ground. Nope, not there, I'm afraid. Molly feels cold now, even on a Darwin summer night this still. Where's Dad? She asks. Town, Aubrey says, groggy and brief, and Molly knows her uncle just spoke a lie because her uncle can't lie like the day sky can lie. I had to let myself into the house, Aubrey says. Then I saw the strangest thing. Your father's bedroom door was wide open and his drawers were pushed across the floor. And damned if our treasured black tin box wasn't missing. Molly's eyes fall on the box beside her lamp. Aubrey smiles. I thought the house might have been robbed, Aubrey says. Filthy, searching for the word.
opportunists, Molly. Everybody's evacuating their houses, and all through town those evacuated houses are being looted by filthy opportunists, making the most of this—" he takes a while longer to find this word— "precarious situation Darwin has found itself in." A wobble. A stagger. Imagine that. Robbing the homes of people running for their lives from the Japs. "Next, I'll be robbing from the dead," Molly says. Aubrey smiles, waves a knowing forefinger at Molly. Then he relaxes his right arm, lets the rifle down, waves it about. "I thought I'd better grab Horace's rifle and explore the extent of the burglary," he says. Then, to my surprise, I saw a flicker of light from the kitchen window. Someone was walking through the cemetery, and now who should I find burying my valuable—" Another search for the right word, another stagger. "Treasure." "It doesn't belong to—" "Be quiet now, child," Aubrey snaps. "You talk too much, child. Maybe that's why you talk all that gibberish to the sky. There's nobody left on earth who can stand listening to your drivel." He moves closer to Molly. He leans down and takes the lamp by its hooped wire handle. His eyes settle on the duffel bag hanging over Molly's shoulder. "Hand me the bag," he says. Molly reluctantly slips the bag from her shoulders, hands it to her uncle, who tips the contents onto the ground by his boots. Canned goods and utensils, water, a thick black book with yellowed pages. Aubrey squats down to examine the book's spine. "The complete works of William Shakespeare," he reads. He stands once more. "You going somewhere, Molly?" he asks. "You disappearing into the bush again? You're about to get yourself lost in the godless wild again?" "I'm going to find Longcoat Bob," Molly replies. Aubrey laughs, the lamp moving in his hand, sending light to new points of darkness. "And why?" Aubrey shakes his head, piecing his words together slowly. "Would you seek to find that snaky sorcerer, Longcoat Bob?" "I'm going to ask him to lift the curse he put on our family," Molly says flatly. Aubrey howls with laughter. "Ha! Of course, the curse," he says. "You still believe in curses, Molly?" He nods his head vigorously. He moves closer to her from the shadows. He hisses at her. "You still believe in sorcery?" She doesn't look at him. He's Medusa from the shadows. "Even after everything I've told you about Tom Berry," he says, closer still. "How many times do I have to tell you, child, that some children are born into this world destined to lead lives of pure and unavoidable misery?" He extends a crooked right forefinger and he taps it hard 3 times on her chest as he says, "And you are," tap, quite simply, tap, "one of those children," tap. Aubrey turns and tilts his head to the stars. "You can't blame Longcoat Bob," he says, snidely, waving a finger at the sky. "Blame God. Blame your precious sky. Blame your shimmering stars." He turns to Molly. He snarls at her. The shadow snarl. "Blame your mother," he says. He laughs, staggers on his feet again. "I was there, Molly," he says, his drunk head bobbing on his shoulders. Molly can't resist Medusa. "Where?" she asks. "When your mother gave birth to you," he says. "I was there." His drunk legs move beneath him,
but his head returns to the stars. I saw the sadness of you arrive from nothingness. 1 minute your sadness was not in this universe, and the next minute it was. His hands make a mushroom cloud. Poof! Like one of those stars arriving up there. You suddenly, here. You arrived, Molly, in all your tragic, predestined, hardly immaculate... He turns back to her. Misery. He walks over to her and smiles. He grips her chin, lifts her face to the lamplight. It was remarkable how quickly it all unfolded. Aubrey says, the single worst thing that ever happened to us. He studies her eyes. I do wonder, young Molly, he says. He laughs to himself and shakes his head. If you are so evidently capable of believing in the notion of sorcerers and curses, I do wonder if you are also capable of believing in the notion that the lives of your mother and your father, and indeed your uncle, only descended into misery the moment you were born. I wonder if you have ever considered the possibility, Molly Hook, that there was a curse given to this family, and that curse was you. He keeps hold of her face, stares deep into her eyes. Molly gives nothing away. Her uncle smiles. But alas, still no tears, he says. Aubrey staggers backwards 4 paces, then drops himself down on his backside on the hard dirt and grass, rolls himself a smoke. Molly watches him lick his tobacco papers. I will never be afraid, she tells herself. I will feel no pain. Rock is hard, can't be broken. You ought to believe in Longcoat Bob's curse, she says, because it has passed to you, Uncle Aubrey. I know this now. He does not look up. What makes you so sure? Only a cursed man would say those things to a child, Molly says. That curse has got into your heart and turned you black. You're only shadow now, Uncle Aubrey. He lights his smoke with a match. I won't argue with that, he murmurs. Then he sucks on his smoke and exhales slowly, the grey smoke floating across the nearby gravestones like the souls of their occupants escaping. Now, tell me, Molly, Aubrey asks, waving the smoke away. How do you intend to find the elusive Longcoat Bob in all that deep country? Molly rests her backside on the soil, tired. The sky gift, she says. Aubrey smiles. But of course, Molly Hook's magical gift that fell from the sky on the day her mother abandoned her like a lame fawn. Molly shakes her head in disgust. I will never be afraid. I will feel no pain. It was a map leading right to Longcoat Bob's gold, and you took it from me, and you threw it away because you were so angry and so stupid, Molly says. Aubrey stands, moves back closer to his niece. Molly stares him in the eyes. You couldn't see a thing because you were just a shadow, she says. Aubrey's menace as he moves. Aubrey's curiosity. You couldn't see that you held all the gold you could ever want in your hands, Molly says. He scratched a map on that pan and he wrote directions on it. Aubrey nods and he kneels to stare deep into her eyes. The man was a lunatic, child. Molly shakes her head. She will tell him now. She will show him. She remembers what she read on the bottom of the pan. She remembers the dark place, The banks of Blackbird Creek. The longer I stand, the shorter I grow, she recites, chin up, knowing and defiant, and the water runs to the Silver Road, her uncle says, finishing her sentence. Molly is stunned, gut-punched by her uncle's knowledge of those words. Aubrey laughs, shaking his head. By the end, Molly, your grandfather was scratching his loopy ramblings on anything he could put a pocket knife to. The scribbles of a broken prospector who had spilled his marbles long ago. Molly shakes her head slowly while her uncle nods his. The man was brain sick, Aubrey says. He lost his mind just like his daughter lost hers 2 decades later, and just like his granddaughter is losing hers before my very eyes. But he didn't write them directions for you, Molly says forcefully. He wrote them for someone who was graceful, someone who was poetic. That Silver Road is out past Clyde River, and I know how to find it. You'll never know, because you're not poetic, and you're sure as shit not graceful. Molly closes her eyes and braces for the palm across her face, but it does not come. She opens her eyes again, a puff of Aubrey's smoke, a long pause, another exhalation into the night air, the thin eyes now of Aubrey Hook, the shadow forming around him, the blackness. And how exactly will you find it, Molly? He asks. Molly shakes her head. She spits her words more than she speaks them. I'll never tell you. Aubrey grips his rifle, moves closer to Molly. Poor Molly Hook, he says. Mad little gravedigger girl. You think if you find that Silver Road, and you'll find Longcoat Bob? And what do you think Longcoat Bob's going to tell our little gravedigger girl? Do you think Longcoat Bob's going to tell the gravedigger girl what happened to her mother to make her so sad? Do you think Longcoat Bob has all the answers? Do you think he'll tell you why she left you behind? He holds the lamp to her eyes, so close that the heat of the lamp flame warms the invisible hairs on her cheek. He whispers, Is it her you're always talking to up there in the sky? His breath smells like turpentine. His lip spit lands on her cheek and chin. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged, he recites. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere, waiting for you. Do you think she's waiting for you, Molly? Do you think Longcoat Bob's gonna tell you where she is? Aubrey steps back, looks across a lane of headstones. Then he points the rifle at Molly's heart. Let me show you exactly where she is. Run, Molly, run, whispers the night sky, because the night sky always fears the worst. Since she was 7 years old, she has not spent so long in this corner of the cemetery. She has not spent so long beneath the milkwood tree. She has not been so close to the Black Rock Frog Rock. Aubrey Hook sits on the Black Rock Frog Rock. The lamp rests beside his black left foot. He rolls a smoke, his lips still wet from the hip flask nestled in his crotch. The rifle leans on his bent right leg. Molly Hook stands inside a hole in the earth, only 1 foot deep so far. Bert's blade in the process of going deeper. The gravedigger girl does not respond to the sky. Your grandfather was not brain sick, Molly, says the night sky, because the night sky never lies. You are not losing your mind, Molly. It is, in fact, your uncle who is losing his mind. Molly digs, blade into dirt, boot onto blade. He's going to leave you here, Molly. He's going to bury you with your mother. Do you hear me, Molly? Do you understand? You are digging your own grave. Molly pauses, looks up from the hole at her uncle. The lamp lights only one side of his face. The rest is shadow. A black moustache, wet from spirit. Strands of brown bush tobacco caught in the nest of hair above his invisible top lip. Molly leans down once more, takes Bert's tall wooden handle. She turns around in the hole so her back is facing her uncle. She digs.
Why is he doing this?
Molly whispers into the dirt. You know exactly why he's doing it. Longcoat Bob's curse, Molly murmurs, shoveling another load to the surface. That sounds like one of those gentle lies the day sky would tell you. Molly digs, heaves to the surface a heaped blade of soil the colour of chocolate cake. But I know you, Molly, and I know when you know the truth but are too afraid to tell it. Molly digs Bert hard into the dirt, rests her aching right arm on the handle for a moment, stares up at the stars sprinkled across the black sky.
He wants me gone,
Molly says. Why? Asks the night sky.
I make the shadow.
Why? Asks the night sky.
I remind him of her.
Who? Asks the night sky.
Her,
Molly says.
Mum, I saw the way he looked at her. I saw the things he wanted to do to her. I saw his envy. I saw his lust. The poet's all right about it. I saw it in his eyes. I saw it in his shadow.
Molly returns to her digging. Stop talking to the sky. Ignore the night sky, she tells herself, but the sky keeps talking to her. You saw a question, Molly?
I don't want to ask it, she says.
You will feel no pain, Molly. You will never be afraid.
I know what the question is.
You have always known the question. Molly stabs Bert into the dirt and looks up at the night sky.
What did he do to her?
The night sky says nothing, and that's how Molly knows she asked the right question.
You can save me,
Molly says. How can I possibly save you from up here? Asks the night sky.
A sky gift,
Molly says. The night sky says nothing, and that's how Molly knows the night sky is thinking. Do you remember what I told you?
Keep your eyes on the sky, Molly says.
Keep your eyes on the sky, Molly Hook. The night animals of Hollowwood can see all of this curious scene. The man on the rock and the girl in the hole and the dim lamplight. The fruit bats in the trees. A black-headed python on a cool air night hunt, slipping behind the black rock frog rock, unseen. 2 possums bouncing across to a high branch in the milkwood tree, which are startled by the lamplight. A saggy-bottomed wombat lumbering towards the hole, suddenly frozen stiff by the sound of Molly's voice.
Drink break?
She asks, turning to face her uncle. Aubrey's head is down. He spits a strand of tobacco from his bottom lip. No breaks, he says. Dig, Molly, dig. Molly digs. Women and children first. Evacuations. Daytime preparations. Nighttime blackouts. Young men painting Darwin's streetlights with dark blue paint. Orderlies from the Cullen Bay Civil Hospital carrying elderly patients to the waterfront. Women and children first. Nurses to stay and care for the wounded. Some 530 evacuees squeeze onto the troop ship Zealandia, bound for southern Australia. The ship hasn't been cleaned for months. Minimal toilet and washing facilities. Anyone carrying a suitcase of belongings weighing more than 35 pounds, and there are many, has to watch that suitcase being thrown into the sea by guards and their keepsakes, photographs, money, savings, winnings and heirlooms sinking to the sand where the stingrays hide. White Australian families share cabins built for 4 with as many as 12. Chinese families are not allowed in cabins at all, but are forced by the guards to spend the long journey south on the open deck. On shore, a wealthy cattleman in a black suit slams a handful of notes down on the front desk of the office of the State Shipping Company.
"Sorry, sir. Women and children first,"
says a flustered young office clerk. More notes on the counter. "Just get me on that fucking boat." Some 187 evacuees sail south from Darwin Harbour on the passenger ship Montoro. Some 173 aboard the Cool Armour. A final shipload of 77 women and children on the Coolinda. Dazed children on the decks. Toddlers confused and frightened by the suffocating rush. Gripping doll heads and the sweaty palms of mothers whose husbands remain in town digging sheltering trenches, the same way Molly Hook digs graves. Blade into soil, boot onto blade, soil into cart. 2 men in singlets smoking by a sandbag filling station. One bloke says to the other bloke that he heard about a bloke who knows a bloke who's handing out cyanide pills. "If the Japs want to set up shop here," he says, "I'll be sticking one of those in me pie, thank you very much." Dusty and frantic families, carrying calico bags full of clothing and food on the long road south. Families near flattened by fast-moving military convoys barrelling north to the RAAF airfields, hangars, fuel dump zones, workshops and ammunition stores. Australian Kitty Hawk fighters zipping through the sky on test flights. An evacuating mother of 3 waiting for transport on the side of the Stuart Highway. Her youngest son, 8 years of age, holds a suitcase in his right hand. With his left forearm, he hugs to his chest a small and plucky Australian terrier with dark brown eyes. In her dress pocket, his mother clutches a National Emergency Services leaflet she found in her letterbox. "Each and every evacuee will be entitled to take the following articles as personal belongings. A. 1 small calico bag containing hair and toothbrushes, toilet soap, towel, etc., personal only. B. 1 suitcase or bag containing clothing and such shall not exceed 35 pounds gross weight. C. A maximum of 2 blankets per person. D. Eating and drinking utensils. E. 1 2-gallon water bag filled for each family. F. No evacuee shall take or attempt to take with him or her any domestic pet, either animal or bird, and any such pets owned by the evacuees should be destroyed prior to the evacuation." The mother gives the boy a look he knew was coming. Grim wartime pragmatism. He hands her the dog, and she walks it into the scrub lining the Stuart Highway. A town of men now. Men who spend their days as clerks and shoe salesmen and taxation officers are rushing through the streets carting the sands that fills the sandbags that will cushion the impact of dreadful things the Japanese plan to drop from the sky. Men who are trawlermen and house painters and fencers and farmers by day are being taught by shipped-in Australian Army recruits how to feed ammunition to a Lewis gun, while more seasoned soldiers oil anti-aircraft guns on the oval in the centre of town, and another on high ground at Fanny Bay, north of town. Men are loading 28-pound shells that can soar 6.5 miles into the sky. Blazing heat. Soldiers in singlets and shorts, socks and boots. Weary gangs of longshoremen working round the clock, splitting shifts among their full complement of 252 wharfies, unloading shipped armaments, depth charges, TNT and other explosives, from the hulking 6,000-ton, 393-foot-long cargo vessel Neptuna, moored off Stokes Hill Wharf. Across town, some families refuse to leave the homes they've worked for because they lack trust. They don't trust the Northern Territory administrators giving the evacuation orders. They don't trust their neighbours. They don't trust the police, and they don't even trust the Japanese to make it all the way to Darwin. But dawn comes, as it always does, and the sky is the colour of 19th of February 1942, as it can only be once. In the Tiwi Islands settlement of Ngui on Bathurst Island, 50 miles north across the sea from Darwin, Father John McGrath carries out his morning duties as head of the mission of the Sacred Heart. A dry, hot day. Father McGrath says his morning prayers, has his breakfast, moves through the island mission where some 300 Tiwi Islanders are working in the fields, tending to gardens, and younger missionaries are making their way to the island school. He laughs with the islanders. He believes in humour and the words of Matthew. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. He has lived with the Tiwi Islanders here since 1927. He speaks their language. Some call him the Apostle of the Tiwis. Others call him John. He will one day be called grandfather by these people, and many years from now they will bury him in the red earth of this paradise island, with the sons of the island's oldest women taking turns to gently shovel the dug soil back over his resting corpse. Nampungi, they will whisper. Goodbye. The sound reaches the island first. The vicious snarl of that sound, the growl of it, the wasp of it, the tiger of it. A violent symphony of 3-blade propellers slicing air and overworked engines spitting smoke. The Tiwi farmers lower their tools and turn their heads to the blue Pacific sky. Father John McGrath raises his head with them. He believes in things that take place beyond that sky, but he can't quite believe this sight he now sees beneath it. A great and terrifying swarm of grey and green and silver aircraft in arrow-shaped attack formation. Red, rising sun circles painted on the undersides of their wings, heading southeast to Australia. But also somewhere more specific, and the name of that evolutionary wonder enters the mind of the priest. Darwin, he tells himself, and he runs across the mission yards to an administration room where he sits himself down at a radio transceiver, call sign 8SE, linked to a series of communication and navigation air radio stations scattered across mainland Australia in a network called AWA. Amalgamated Wireless of Australia. He speaks urgently into the transceiver's mouthpiece, sends a message to the AWA Darwin Coastal Station, call sign VID. 8SE to VID, he says. Big flight of planes passed over going south, very high, over. And a scratchy radio reply is returned from a duty officer in the Darwin Coastal Station. 8SE from VID, message received, stand by. But Father John McGrath cannot stand by because his heart and his legs are telling him to run, telling him there is already something raining from the high blue sky that is tearing up the red soil of Ngui settlement, something splitting through timber rooftops and stabbing through walls. Many years from now, around Father John McGrath's grave, the oldest Tiwi women will speak of the priest's bravery and goodness on that morning of 19th of February 1942. How he cared for them and led them to shelter, shielding them with his own God-given life. Some will refer to that fire and metal rain as machine gun fire. Others will simply remember it as war. A whole world war that fell from the sky. Night skies tell no lies. Her mouth is dry, and she longs for the mattress in her bedroom, and she longs for the road out of Darwin, or the train to Alice Springs, or the saddle on Danny the colt who runs like the wind blows. Molly digs slowly. She digs for so long that the sun comes up over Hollowood Cemetery, and the cemetery stones surrounding Molly and the hole dampen with dew. Soon, the hole is deeper than Molly is tall. Aubrey stands at the foot of the grave, watching her dig. His flask is empty, but what he's drunk in the past 24 hours will keep him staggering for a while longer. During her 5th hour of digging, Bert's blade strikes something hard that Molly mistakes for rock. She drives harder with the shovel and feels an object beneath the dirt break into pieces. Her right hand reaches deep into the soil and emerges into the morning light again, carrying a handful of brown dirt and fragments of her mother Violet's shattered shinbone. Molly reels back against the southern wall of the grave, her eyes now finding a ball of white bone in the dirt, like a wildly struck golf ball just landed a foot from her boots. It's Violet Hook's right kneecap. She turns her head away, and her stomach turns with it, and she vomits in her mouth, but there's no breakfast or lunch in it, only fluid. She spits, and she closes her eyes, face tucked in the corner of the hole.
Please don't make me do this!
Molly screams. Dig, Molly, dig, says Aubrey Hook, leaning into the grave. Molly shakes her head. Molly grits her teeth.
It's you who's mad, Uncle Aubrey, she says. It's you who's lost his mind.
Dig, Molly, dig, Aubrey repeats.
I know why you're doing this,
she says, not turning to look at her uncle. She breathes hard, sweat across her forehead, sweat in her eyes, dirt across her arms and legs, dirt beneath her fingernails, that circle of bone in the dirt.
You want to see her again, she says. I want to see her again too, but not like this. It's not her, Uncle Aubrey.
The shadow across Aubrey's face, black as the hat on his head. He closes his eyes and breathes deep. He opens his eyes and raises his rifle to his shoulder, aims the muzzle at Molly's chest. Dig, Molly, he commands. And then a sound, a wailing sound, reaching all the way from Darwin's town centre and through the trees of Hollowood Cemetery, between the stone epitaphs of the dead, to the ears of Molly Hook, standing deep inside her mother's grave. An air raid siren, ringing out across Darwin. Aubrey looks back over his shoulder, finds the direction of the sound. Molly keeps her eyes on the sky. No more dawn pinks and reds. All blue now. Aubrey returns his gun barrel to Molly's chest. Dig, child, or I'll leave you face down beside her. Molly breathes, grips Bert's handle. The air raid siren rings again. Bert's blade is gentle now, more the tool of an archaeologist. No stomping on the blade shaft, just a series of scrapes and gentle digs. She's Howard Carter, from the papers, and her mother's body is an Egyptian pharaoh sleeping in the dirt, precious and fragile. But her churning stomach means this is not science. This is not archaeology. This is family. 1 shovel load. 2 shovel loads. 3 shovel loads.
Deeper,
Aubrey barks. I will feel no pain, she tells herself. I will feel no pain. I will feel no pain. Dig for your courage, Molly. Dig for your soul. The day sky says nothing. The gravedigger girl will uncover the bones of her mother alone. Deeper! Aubrey hollers, leaning into the grave more with each macabre sighting of bone. More leg bones, arm bones across a waist. It's not her, she tells herself. It's not her, it's not her. She's not down here. She's not down here. She went up there. She went up there. The last thin fibres of a dress, earth-eaten and browned by soil, covering a rib cage with 3 missing ribs. Objects surrounding the skeleton, dirt caked and heavy. A jewellery box, a pair of dancing shoes, books. So many books around the skeleton. Keep digging, Molly, Aubrey says. The shovel goes deeper. More objects. More of Violet Hook's belongings. A porcelain figurine. A teacup. Then Molly's eyes catch the edge of a copper circle. Bert's blade digs around the copper. Scrape. Scrape. Dig. Dig. Then, Molly does the rest by hand, fingers frantically searching for a hold on the copper sky gift she thought was lost, disposed of in a bag of rubbish with a pig's head and a dozen eggshells. She pulls her grandfather's copper pan from the earth, runs her fingers over it, inspects its underside, scratches the dirt off it with her fingernails. The words are still there. The directions. I will never be afraid. Rock is hard, can't be broken. Liar! She screams. You fucking animal liar! Give me that pen, Aubrey says from the grave edge. Molly hugs it close to her chest. It's mine, she says. The sky gave it to me. Aubrey points the gun barrel at Molly's face. And now you're gonna give it to me. Molly stays put. Aubrey cocks the rifle's hammer. I won't ask again, Molly. 2 eyes to 2 eyes. Blue to black. Light to shadow. Molly tosses the pan to the surface. Aubrey picks up the pan. There's no such thing as curses, Molly, he says, inspecting the words on the back of the pan. There's no such thing as sky gifts either. He wipes more dirt off the pan, uncovering the 3rd and last set of words Tom Berry engraved. Molly sees a strange light, a brief glowing, shift across her uncle's eyes, and she can't tell if it's a reflection from the copper pan or the light of inspiration on his face. But make no mistake, Molly. There is such a thing as gold. Aubrey drops the pan by his boots. Keep digging, he says. Molly grips Bert's handle once more. She digs. You don't need nothing from Longcoat Bob, Molly, Aubrey says. You don't need to find some old black witch doctor to give you your answers. The shovel blade scraping away more dirt. You see this gun, Molly? Aubrey says. Molly turns her eyes to the gun barrel. Here's your answers right here. She took this gun, and she got herself lost too, out there in that deep country. Maybe she went looking for Longcoat Bob too. We found her 4 days later. She was lying flat on a rock by Strike-a-Light Creek. The shovel blade scraping away dirt. I'll never forget her face, Aubrey says. Molly turns to her uncle. He's lost his mind. Distant. Your mother had a nice face, he whispers. He snaps back to the moment. Show me her face, he says, pointing the gun at Molly. And the gravedigger girl's boots stumble on the uneven soil, and she kneels beside the bone frame of her mother, not entirely because she's being ordered to at the end of a gun barrel. There is a space inside the gravedigger girl's mind that wants to see her mother's face. She wants to see the shape of her cheekbones, her jawline. She wants to touch that face. Her soil-covered fingers brush dirt off her mother's skull. Her right thumb strokes a cheekbone. She's dreaming this, she tells herself. She's been dreaming since she was standing outside Ward's boutique, staring at that sky-blue dancing dress. She can do things like this in her dreams, kneel beside her mum like this, touch her bones. She can find beauty in the act. She can make it tender. 2 nasal cavities. She loved this woman, so she can love this bone face. The smooth bone bowl that once carried her left eye, now carrying a collection of soil that Molly dusts away as carefully as she dusts off Bert's blade at the end of a long day's digging. The gentle curve of the left side temporal bone, like an empty rock pool at Butterfly Gorge when there's been no rain. Dirt falling off that face, but her left hand explores too far. Some pieces of archaeology should never be uncovered. Dirt falls away on the upper right side of the skull, from Violet Hook's frontal bone, her high vertical plate, and there is a hole where the right side of her skull should be. There is no smooth bone bowl around her right eye. There is only dirt. "How do you do that?" Aubrey asks. "I have a heart of stone," Molly says. "I will never be afraid. I will feel no pain." "There's something wrong with you, child," Aubrey says. "I know," Molly replies. Molly runs her eyes over her mother's skeleton. "It's not her," she tells herself. "It's not her, it's not her." She lingers on the chest bones. But it is her. She is here. She is down here too. There is a thin sheet of worn dress material stuck to her upper chest bones. Her mother's heart once beat beneath that fabric. Molly's hands reach for the material. She will peel it away and she will know the truth. The night sky truth, not the day sky truth. Night skies tell no lies. But then a voice from the surface. "Get away from her, Molly!" Molly swings her head back over her shoulder. Her father, Horace, stands beside his brother at the edge of the grave, 5 feet above her. He holds a long pickaxe in his right hand. The sight of her father makes Molly snap out of her dream, snap out of her deep grave fever. She reels back. "He was gonna shoot me, Dad," Molly says. Aubrey howls, a frenzied guffaw. He slaps his knees grandly. He adopts the voice of a 12-year-old girl. "He was gonna shoot me, Dad," he howls. He staggers to his left, finds his footing at the edge of the grave, then his face goes dark in an instant. "Have you seen what your child has done?" he asks. 2 hands on the rifle handle, balls of saliva gathering on his moustache. "I've seen what you done to Greta," Horace says. "You went too far this time. She came into town, Aubrey. She told the police. If we survive these Japs, they'll be coming for you." Horace takes in the scene. His gravedigger daughter, the open grave, his grave older brother, his grave shadow. "Your wheels have come off the train tracks, brother," Horace says. "I'm teaching your child a lesson," Aubrey shouts. "You've gone too far, Aubrey," Horace replies. He stares at his brother while he speaks to his daughter. "You come up out of there, Molly." Molly moves towards him along the uneven surface, stepping on a glass box that breaks beneath her boots. Her father leans down and offers his right arm. Molly grips it with her right hand and is hauled to the surface with Bert the shovel in her left hand, her muddy boots tearing dirt from the grave walls. "Go back to the house, Molly," Horace says. "No," Molly says. Horace turns to his daughter. Aubrey laughs.
I'm never going back inside that house, she screams. It's cursed! The whole graveyard is cursed!
Molly spots her pan at Aubrey's feet, and she rushes for it. Pick it up, Molly, and run for your life. Dig, Molly, dig. But Aubrey stops Molly in her tracks by swinging the gun barrel towards her chest. You gonna attack me, Molly Hook? Aubrey asks. You are brave, aren't you? Braver than my sorry little brother here, that's for certain. He waves the gun barrel. Get over there beside your father. Father and daughter standing on the edge of Violet Hook's grave. Aubrey points the rifle at them both, switching frantically between faces. I was just trying to give the girl some answers, he says. You know what I mean, little brother. Answers to the girl's questions. Do you have any answers for her, little brother? Molly turns to her father, briefly puzzled by these words. Let's calm down for a second, Aubrey, Horace says. You need to sleep this one off. Let's go back to the house. No, thanks, Aubrey says. Maybe the girl's right. Maybe the place is cursed. Maybe you two are cursed. Maybe I'd be better off without you both. Maybe you'd be better off in that hole with Violet. 3 pretty little faces all in a row. Molly watches her uncle's eyes. His eyelids are closing on him involuntarily. His head's rolling. He's tiring. I'm so fucking sick of digging holes with you two, Aubrey says. His eyelids drop down, open again. I think I need to get out of the grave-digging business, don't you? Get back into the gold-digging business. The sound of engines in the sky. The sound of gas and death and war. The wasp of it. The tiger of it. Molly's senses are sharpest, and she looks up to the sky first. Her father looks up next, and lastly, Aubrey turns his eye to the sky, and his face lights up like he's felt the breath of God, and his mouth falls open, and he laughs. He howls at the impossible sight of a Japanese air fleet moving as one perfect attack arrow across the vivid Darwin blue sky. His drink-skewed vision blurs, and the terrible fleet doubles, triples in number. And he thinks of locusts. He thinks of plague. He thinks of the great ending. Insects, he says. Buzz! He screams at the locusts. Buzz! He screams at the sky. And he howls with laughter. He's still smiling when he turns his face back towards Molly Hook, and the flat back blade of Bert the Shovel smashes into the left side of his face. More arrows of Japanese aircraft now, and Molly rushing for her grandfather's prospector's pan. She scoops it up from the ground and dashes across the graveyard. Get under the house! Her father screams. Aubrey Hook falls to his right, staggers for 3 paces, then finds his footing again on a 4th. Blood runs from the inside of his left ear. His tomato-coloured face, his rage. He shakes his stunned head into action, and he brings the rifle to his shoulder and turns towards his fleeing niece. Run, Molly, run! Horace screams as he drives his shoulder high into his older brother's ribcage, now exposed by Aubrey's raised right arm. A rifle shot explodes aimlessly into the sky, and Horace and Aubrey roll onto the dirt hard, the way shot black buffalo roll onto dirt. And the Hook brothers of Darwin, Australia, twist and turn and wrestle and roll in the soil as 188 green and grey and silver Japanese aircraft soar above them. Some 81 Kate horizontal bombers, 71 Val dive bombers, and 36 Zero fighters in attack formations. The brothers scratch at each other's eyes and cheeks, and they scratch at their shared past. Horace's mouth finds the flesh of his brother's shoulder, and he bites deep into it. Aubrey's hands find his brother's Adam's apple, and he squeezes hard. Horace's left hand finds Aubrey's left eyeball, and his thumb pushes against that white flesh lychee organ. They are wolves, both, and they want blood. But blood is flying through the sky above them. "Run, Molly, run!" hollers Horace Hook through his choke-gripped neck. Molly runs. Past headstones and trees, towards the flat yard that leads to the cemetery house. Then, a whistle sound, like a boiled kettle whistling. The largest kettle ever boiled, and this impossible kettle is falling through the sky. Now she hears other whistles, 5, 6 in chorus, giant boiled kettles dropping towards her. The whistle sounds seem to bend, like the very sound is fixed to a curved wire in the air, and that wire is arched like a rainbow, and that rainbow ends somewhere in Hollowwood Cemetery. And the whistling gets louder and louder and louder, and she knows the falling kettles are getting closer and closer and closer. But she can see the cemetery house now, and she will go there, even if it's cursed, and she will hide beneath the house and lie flat against the downstairs concrete and wait all this out. Just Molly Hook and the brown snakes cooling their bellies. Run, Molly, run. Foot after foot, boot after boot. But the whistling, that terrifying whistling, so loud and so close, it's falling on top of her. A sound is falling on her, a sound that has transformed in the sky into something physical. Now it's so near it makes her fall to the ground and put her head between her legs and her twig-thin arms over her ears and her scalp. And finally, the terrifying whistling ends in a violent explosion that rumbles across the earth and rattles Molly Hook's growing bones. Yard dirt rains upon her, and she feels like she's sitting beneath a tip truck, and a team of town labourers are unloading a tray of council dirt on top of her body, and she knows she must get up and run again because she will suffocate beneath all that flying earth. She stands up and moves forward 3 steps, but something has wrecked her equilibrium, and she falls face first onto the dirt. She raises her head once more and tries to focus on something, anything, between the grey smoke and earth debris. And she finds what must be the cursed cemetery house, but it is no longer the house she grew up in. Half of the house is missing, flattened into the dirt. The other half stands exposed, like it has been sliced down its centre, and its domestic innards are spilling onto the ground. Molly can see the kitchen stove in broad daylight. She can see her mother's bookshelf, fallen on its side beneath half a tin roof sheltering devastation and destruction. Household items, plates, glasses, ornaments, shattered and spread across the yard. More whistling now, closer and closer. And Molly watches the earth away to her right explode in fire and dirt, and she runs forward, but the earth explodes again up ahead, so she turns and runs back through the smoke and dirt and violence and war. The whistling sounds are all around her still, and now she knows they are bombs, war bombs, falling from the sky and thumping into earth, and she barely has time to react to one earth-tearing explosion before she has to react to another, changing her direction with every thunderous eruption. But then, the sounds fade. The whistling is not in the sky anymore. There's only a sharp and thin whistling of a different kind in her ears. A ringing. Run, Molly, run. She can't see her father and uncle. She can't see the scrub in front of her. She can't see the gravestones of hollow wood. Run, Molly, run! Foot after foot, boot after boot. Her heart, her cursed stone heart somehow beating for her, pulsing for her, moving her forward. Run and run and run, and then fall. Molly drops into a hole in the earth. Her feet land hard on uneven ground, and her body lands spine first on uncovered bones. She wipes dirt from her eyes and looks up out of the hole she's fallen into and realises she's in the grave she just opened. A rectangular prism 5.5 feet deep in the ground. She turns and finds her mother's hollowed-out face and draws a deep breath, then rolls instinctively off her mother's skeleton. Yet this hole down here feels safe, safer than what's happening up there. So she squeezes her body into the space between her mother's left arm bone and the grave wall. And there she stays. As another bomb drops somewhere on the terrifying land above her, she reaches instinctively for her mother's hand, the thin bones resting on the broken waist bones. Keep your eyes on the sky, Molly. Keep your eyes on the sky. And the edges of that grave become a window frame for Molly Hook. Then the smoke drifts away, and all that fills the grave window frame now is a rectangle of perfect blue sky, and the endless arrows of Japanese warplanes passing over it, dropping their bombs as they go. And time slows now, and all that exists in this world is that view from the grave, and those bombs look to Molly like bull ants. That's all they are, Molly. Bull ants. But that's a day sky lie, and the gravedigger girl is scared, so she squeezes her mother's hand. "Can you feel it, Mum?" she whispers. "We're on top now, Mum. Can you feel it? We're floating. We're on top." And seen from the daylight blue sky above, and looking down, and looking closer in and closer in through the smoke and the earth debris, they are mother and daughter, flat on their backs and hand in hand, waiting for war to stop falling from the sky. "We're on top, Mum," she whispers. "We're on top, Mum. We're on top, Mum." Blood flowers blooming. Black ants. From so high up in the sky, through the flat glass canopy window of a top-speeding Zero, all those scrambling soldiers and citizens of Darwin, Australia, look like black ants to Yukio Miki of Old Town Sakai. Helpless black ants, zipping in and out of concrete buildings, like the organised chaos lines of the black carpenter ants he'd stare at as a boy. He would rest his chin on his knee by a pile of firewood near his family's backyard incinerator and watch the lines of carpenter ants butt heads trying to figure out how they were going to make use of such a large plunder of wood. Yukio would run his boyhood fingers along the entry holes to the tunnel networks the ants had chewed inside the fire logs, and he'd wonder how creatures so seemingly disordered could create something so smooth and artful. And he would marvel for a full hour at the relentless industry of those carpenter ants, and then his heart would hurt when his father, Oshiro, would grip 2 logs filled with a whole microscopic civilization of black ants, a whole world built by toil, and toss them so casually into the incinerator. The heat of that stone box, the flames from it, the fire, all that yellow and red. Everything inside his cockpit is hot and rattling now. Too much noise up here. Greased metal and unprotected mechanical controls. Rattling cow flap controls. Fuel tank selectors. Hydraulic system controls. Buzzing electric switchboxes. Landing gear controls. Jammed in hard inside the cramped flying machine, part of the awe-inspiring and awful arrow of 36 agile red sun fighters now nosediving through the air towards central Darwin. Yukio thinks of his late grandfather, Saburo Miki, a strange and thoughtful man, who once told Yukio the riddle of the blood flower. "The blood flower
blooms only when provoked," Saburo Miki said. "The blood flower blooms on battlefields."
All that flame, Yukio tells himself. And he remembers Pearl Harbor. How he kept firing and firing and hoping those American warship cannons would fire back, and a direct hit would end it all for him, and he would be at peace, because he could then stop firing. End it all with his honor intact. All that burning, he tells himself. All that yellow and red turning to black down there. Down there, where Darwin is being incinerated. Just like all those Japanese carpenter ants. All that work those people down there put into their little city by the sea. All set alight by Yukio and his brothers. The blood flowers are blooming across Darwin. The pattern of bombs dropped by the Nakajima B5Ns. Bloom, bloom, bloom. Yukio's left hand reaches for the gun sight fixed between his two 7.7mm machine guns. The Zeros will strafe a series of military installations. The Zeros will fire at anything in their way, and they will shoot those black ants in the back and in the front and in the side. And those black ants will not fire back, because they're not ready to. The low-flying Zeros on his left and right release their terrifying, strafing fire, and the machine gun rounds thump through concrete and dirt and human flesh. But Yukio Miki can't bring himself to pull his trigger. He cannot fire on all those fleeing carpenter ants. And if he cannot fire in this moment, if he cannot serve his brothers as he vowed, then he is a coward, and he is an enemy of his brothers, and the enemy must be vanquished. He reaches his right hand out to grip the photograph of Nara. He pulls it from the ball of gum above his fuel gauge, and he slides the photograph carefully into the breast pocket of his shirt beneath his puffy flight jacket. And he knows now what he must do. And so he searches through his glass canopy window for a building tall enough to fly directly into at the Zero's top speed of 500 kilometers per hour. But all the buildings of Darwin have been incinerated. Then he pulls back hard left on his flight stick, and the Zero suddenly veers away from the formation in an arcing left turn that makes no sense to his brothers on the wings beside him. But Yukio needs to fly away from here. He needs to leave the blood flowers blooming. He needs to find the sky again. And then he needs to find a mountain. This is the end of CD 4. The book continues on CD 5. CD 5. The Bone Pillow. Molly wakes. She hears the distant sound of the air raid siren in town. Her head is on its side, and her eyes are adjusting to the image of her own left hand resting on the ribcage of her mother's skeleton. Her fingers brush the worn and damp fabric still pressed to her mother's chest bones. She needs to look inside. There are answers inside. Molly raises her head, rests her weight on her elbow. She stares at the square of fabric, and it might as well be a curtain. The kind of curtain one pulls back on theatre stages or sideshow alleys to reveal great wonders never before seen. She closes her eyes, and her thumb and forefinger grip a corner of the fabric, and she gently peels it back, tearing away a layer of clay or mud beneath it. Then the fabric rips, and Molly has to peel it back in strips. When she opens her eyes, she is staring at the insides of her mother's chest. Her mother's ribs have created a kind of home for something. This home is a pocket of air and dirt that has a ceiling of arching rib bones, and there is only one thing inside this home, and it is a rock, the size and shape of a human heart. A blood-coloured rock, like none she has seen before, nestling in a bed of dirt inside her mother's chest. A stone organ. Molly's left hand digs through the dirt at the base of the ribcage and scoops out handfuls of earth. At first, the rock won't move because it's fixed in place by old dirt beneath it. But Molly's fingers claw like a dozer bucket beneath and around it, and soon she gets a grip on it and works it back and forth until it breaks free from its dirt casing, and the gravedigger girl pulls the blood-coloured rock, the shape of a human heart, out through the base of her mother's ribcage. Smooth and crimson. Shaped like a strawberry the size of her father's clenched fist. Heavy in her hand. Half of the midday sun can be viewed from the bottom of the grave, and Molly holds the blood rock up to the sky and whispers one perfect word. Mum. Molly finds her father's leg beside the backyard thunderbox. She knows the leg is her father's and not her uncle's because the shoe on the leg's attached foot is a brown leather lace-up, and Aubrey Hook only ever wears black work boots. The leg lies in the grass like a misplaced theatre prop. Hollowwood Cemetery is bomb-scarred and ravaged. One half of the cemetery house stands, and the rest is rubble. Concrete, brick, and splintered wood spread across the dirt yard. For a moment, Molly considers picking up the leg. She could slip it into the duffel bag that hangs once again over her shoulder. But then she thinks of where she's heading, and she wonders what use she would have all that way out there for her father's bomb-severed but sensibly shoed left leg. Who belongs to that? Molly looks up to where the voice came from, keeping a firm grip on Bert's handle. Greta. The great Greta Mays, toast of Darwin, all the way from the theatre stage to the blitzed lawns of Hollowwood Cemetery, a Hollywood starlet. In the flesh, Molly tells herself. Such as that flesh is. Bruises across her arms, a black and swollen left eye, stitches across her face. Molly tells herself not to ask Greta about her eye, about her face, because she learned the hard way how humiliating it is to answer questions about visible cuts and bruises. It's my dad's leg, Molly says, staring at it. You okay, Molly? Greta asks. Molly considers this question. She doesn't respond. She turns and pads across the dirt yard, deeper into the cemetery. Greta follows. Greta moves slowly, and Molly notices. Greta's insides are hurting when she walks, and her right hand clutches the right side of her abdomen. At the edge of the yard, a one-legged man is sitting in a sprawling oak tree, 6 feet off the ground. He's wedged in awkwardly, his head pushed down into his lap, between the tree's trunk and 3 thick branches that thrust skywards in different directions. One of the man's arms is jammed absurdly behind his neck, and the other hangs where his left leg used to be. Molly stares curiously at him. Her father, Horace Hook. Molly, Greta says softly. Not a question. Not a suggestion. Just a name. Molly. Talk to me, Molly. Molly says nothing. She wanders deeper into the cemetery. In the long aisle formed by 2 rows of ornately carved headstones and slabs, a human figure crawls along the ground, hauling itself along on its elbows with regular, quiet, brute effort heaves. Dirt-caked and black, the figure moves like a leech, or like a black grave wraith that has slipped out into the light and now wants to flee back down into the dark. Molly and Greta reach the feet of the slow-moving carcass, and the carcass's owner, Aubrey Hook, senses them walking behind him. The girl, he thinks. The girl with her beloved fucking shovel scraping along the dirt. He drags himself on and on for another 20 long yards before he tires completely and turns his body around and rests his head on the edge of a stone slab inscribed in honour of the departed William Shankland, 1843 to 1879. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help. Aubrey's eyes squint in the full sun. His face is black with soil and red with blood. He's reaching deep for breath, but he's too tired, too overwhelmed by the scene to catch a satisfactory gulp of Darwin's hot air. He sets his eyes upon Greta and Molly, who stand over him. What? He gasps. Molly and Greta simply stare at him. Greta's hand over her belly, the pain inside her. She looks at the man at her feet, the squirming monster, his tattered clothes, the sweat across his face, his arms and legs, the desperate movement of his fingers patting his own chest, confused, out of place here by this grave. Lost. Water, he says. He coughs hard, and the cough turns into a blood vomit that spills over his chin and onto his buttoned shirt. Take me to hospital, he pleads, gargling on his own blood. Greta leans down to Aubrey. She studies his face. She wonders how her life came to this, how she came to think she was in love with Aubrey Hook. He was charming once, intelligent. They went to shows together. He showered her with gifts. They met when she was dancing most weeknights. He gave her good tips, and then he gave her bad tips. Stick with me. Never leave Darwin. Die with me here in Hollowood Cemetery. Never walk into town and tell the police about the rage places I go and the nights I take you with me. Greta's hands reach into Aubrey's trouser pockets. He tries to bat her hands away, but he's too weak, too spent. Molly sees those hands ferreting through the pockets, and then she sees Greta's right hand extracting a set of keys. I need a hospital. Aubrey gargles louder. He spits more vomit from his mouth with a laborious shake of his head. Greta turns and walks away. Molly follows. They head towards the half-cemetery house and the one-legged man sitting in the tree, the desperate calls of Aubrey Hook echoing behind them. You, take me to the hospital, now! Greta and Molly walk on. You are going to hell. Greta and Molly walk on. I curse the both of you, Aubrey screams to the sky. I curse the both of you. Greta shuffles slowly to the driver's side door of Aubrey's red utility truck, still intact and parked in the gravel driveway in front of the bombed cemetery residence. Molly watches her climb awkwardly and painfully into the driver's seat. She closes the door. Get in, Greta says. I'll drive you to the hospital. I don't need a hospital, Molly says through the open window. But could you take me to Clyde River? Not going that way, Greta says. All the ways go that way, Not the way I'm going, kid.
Wait,
Molly says.
where are you going?
I'm going back to Sydney, she says, and she starts the truck, gives its rattling engine some heavy revs.
Wait,
Molly says.
let me show you something.
She drops her duffel bag to the ground and reaches in to find the prospector's pan amid the cans of beans and corned beef and the Shakespeare book and a blood-coloured stone the size of her dead father's fist. She passes the pan through the driver's side window to Greta. So, Greta says, turning it in her hands, what am I supposed to do with this? Molly points at the pan.
Look at the back,
she says.
the words on the back.
Greta frowns, tries to scan the words on the back of the pan, fails. I can't read all those words, she says. They're covered in mud. She tosses the pan back to Molly. Look, kid, you need to get yourself to hospital, she says. They need to check you for shell shock or something. And once they're done doing that, you need to get the bloody hell out of Darwin. Them Japs ain't finished with this place. Molly holds the pan up.
They're the directions to Longcoat Bob's gold, she says. My granddad etched them in the copper so we'd never forget 'em. I can take you there, Greta. Buried treasure. You said if you knew where that treasure was, you'd grab Bert right away and you'd dig down for your fortune. Well, you can have it all if you want. You'd be richer than your wildest dreams. You could finally be where you belong. We could go to Hollywood together, and you could get your name up in lights, and I could change my name and...
I'm sorry, Molly, Greta says softly. But Molly pushes on.
Greta Mays and Marlene Sky, she urges. You can do it, Greta. You just have to get us to the Clyde River. I'll take care of the rest. You can do it, Greta.
Greta turns her head away from Molly because she doesn't want the girl to see her crying. Molly goes on.
We could go on double dates with Tyrone Power and Gary Cooper, she says. And then we could drive up into the Hollywood Hills and see if we could find Errol Flynn's house, and we could ask him to let us in because we're Australians too.
Greta wipes her eyes, smiles, turns back to Molly. That's a nice film, Mol, she says. I'll be sure to go see it sometime. Then she slams on the accelerator.
Greta, wait!
Molly hollers. But the truck reverses quickly out through the cemetery gates.
Wait, Greta!
Molly cries, her sore bones stumbling feebly after the truck. Then she stops and watches the truck speed south on the road out of Darwin. Silence and dust. She drops her head, eyes to the ground, and the ground is covered in domestic debris from the bombed house, this bombed world. And something at Molly's feet steals her attention. She bends down to pick it up. She holds it up to the sky to see it properly, turning it around between her forefinger and thumb. The red tin thimble. War skies. The Gravedigger Girl and a city on fire. A city in a war dream that she can walk through without being noticed because nobody here can see anything but fire. A portly man sitting in a gutter on Darwin Esplanade, his hands on his knees. His clothes have been blown off and half of the hair on his scalp is missing. He weeps. Empty military tents on the roadside. Homeless dogs and cats sifting through piles of rotting food. 6 soldiers sprinting along the street. Soldiers missing arms and legs on stretchers being carried by soldiers with faces covered in black oil. Bandages being wrapped around temples. Shrapnel sticking out of shoulder blades and thighs and chests. Soldiers gone blind. Soldiers gone mad from shell shock. Rambling things to the sky that make no sense to Molly. The face of someone senior turning to the Gravedigger Girl. "What the fuck are you doing here?" the man barks. "Someone get this kid out of here, for God's sake!" Molly runs. On the beach at Doctor's Gully, there are men pulling bodies in from the shore. The bodies have drowned in oil. There are bodies still in the water, some floating face down and some face up. And the skin on their arms and faces has burned to a raw red flesh. One man pulls on a soldier's arm in the water, and the loose skin of the forearm slides off the bone like a flesh-coloured glove. The smell of the dead mixing with the smell of exhaust and oil. The smell of cordite and burnt wood and burning buildings. Sailors in small boats lifting desperate swimmers into their vessels. Bodies on the beach shot in the back by warplane machine gun fire. In the mangroves of Port Darwin, 2 crocodiles feast on the carcasses of drowned American sailors. Terrified inpatients from the evacuated Cullen Bay Civil Hospital huddle beneath the sheltering cliffs of Cullen Bay. Further along the beachfront is a train, a whole locomotive, upturned by a well-targeted bomb and flipped into the sea. 6 railway wagons have sunk into the water with it. A whole warship, Neptuna, a vessel the length of a football field, is turned over on its side in the low-tide waters around the wharf. Clouds of black smoke rising into the air. So many sunken ships. USS Peary, HMAS Mavie, SS Zealandia, SS Mauna Loa. Oil tankers ablaze. Men still swimming frantically around sinking merchant vessels. The wharf labourers' recreation shed blown to bits. Great sections of the wharf blown away. Soldiers and police and nurses rushing to and from the town's flattened communications centre between the Esplanade and Mitchell Street, which housed the post office, the telephone exchange and cable office. A hole in the ground where the post office once stood. Hills of wooden house framing and rubble have been formed by the explosions. A city of fallen masonry. Bodies on the ground covered in tastefully patterned living room house curtains. Another man's body blown into another fork of a tree. Molly walks on. A.E. Jolly's convenience store has disintegrated. The Bank of New South Wales has been gutted. Sheets of corrugated iron and nails and sheets of fibro are spread across the streets. A naked man gone mad is running through Kavanagh Street shouting Bible verse. Deeper into the suburban streets. Homes split in 2. Ghost houses with swinging front doors blowing in the wind. More abandoned cats and dogs. Dogs howling mournfully. 2-storey homes built to withstand fierce cyclones, flattened by bombs. An old woman stands dazed by her letterbox, the only thing still standing on her property. Her house is a mound of rubble. She speaks in what sounds to Molly like German. She's heavy-set, and her big arms are raised in confusion, and she weeps. She howls, uncontrollably, talking to God or talking to those Japanese warplanes. When she sees Molly, she beckons the gravedigger girl to her. "Please, please," the old woman says. She opens her arms out to Molly, suggesting she needs a human embrace. She needs to hold something comforting. She needs to hold the gravedigger girl. Molly approaches her cautiously. "Did you have family here?" Molly asks. The woman rambles something loudly through tears in German. "Why didn't you get out?" Molly asks. "Please, please," the old woman says, opening her arms for an embrace. And reluctantly, Molly moves in close and leans into the woman for a hug. The old woman wraps her arms around Molly's neck and brings the girl's face to her belly. The old woman weeps into Molly's hair, squeezing her tight. and the embrace feels warm to Molly too, and she wonders if she needed this embrace as much as the old woman. But then the old woman howls again and grips Molly tighter still, and Molly's face is now being pushed hard into the woman's belly, and Molly feels like her head is tucked into a pillow. She motions to pull away, but the old woman's heavy arms hold her tight, and Molly has to struggle to breathe through her mouth and nose, and then she discovers she can't really breathe at all, so she pulls away hard, but the old woman simply howls more loudly and presses Molly more firmly against her belly. "I can't breathe," Molly says, the words muffled by the woman's stomach. "Let me go! I can't breathe!" And Molly is suffocating now. The old woman can only weep and howl to the heavens. She can't let go. Her grief is too strong, and she cannot release this girl, and Molly pushes against the old woman, but she won't release her. So Molly stomps on the old woman's feet with her dig boots. "Let me go!" she yells. "It's okay," the old woman replies in a thick German accent, furiously patting Molly's hair. "I've got you! It's okay!" And Molly kicks now at the old woman's shin bones. She kicks, and the old woman finally releases her. "It's okay!" The old woman howls as Molly runs. Run, Molly, run. Looters in the shops. Looters in the houses. Men rushing out of bombed-out hardware stores with tools. Men rushing out of bombed-out homes with rugs and furnishings and bags full of jewellery. 2 men lugging a looted piano along Smith Street. Convoys of cars and lorries. Civilians and deserting servicemen rushing south to safety in the distant towns of Catherine and Larimar and Daly Waters. Shirtless and brave servicemen staying put to reload mobile anti-aircraft guns. Chinese restaurant proprietors and Greek cafe owners at last convinced of the need to evacuate. They needed to see the actual bombs dropping before they were finally persuaded to leave. Run, Molly, run. Then stop. A row of town centre stores with their front windows shattered. Civilians stepping over glass shards to let themselves into locked fashion stores. People walking out of stores, arms filled with 3-piece suits, and the sky-blue dancing dress still hanging on the mannequin in the window of Ward's boutique. Molly presses her face against the glass. She sees herself dancing again. When the earth rights itself, and Darwin returns to normal, and Sam comes home. She'll be older then, and Sam will be honoured to walk into a dance hall with her on his arm, wearing a dress like that. Molly watches a woman, a nurse from the hospital, come out of Ward's boutique carrying 2 gowns over her right forearm, then scurry off up the street. Molly looks at that blue dress again, and then slips through the front door of Ward's, her duffel bag over her shoulder, Bert still tucked between the shoulder strap and her spine. There are no lights on in the boutique, because there's no electrical power in town. She walks by racks of gowns and dresses, scans the room. She finds it at the back of the store by the store counter and cash register. The one sky blue dress left on the rack. She lifts it off by its hanger, holds it up to assess the size. Before trying it on in the change room, she shuffles through a back door that leads to a bathroom where she hopes to quench her thirst and wash the dirt and sweat from her face. But she can only manage a few brief sips of rusty water from a tap that then stops running. In the changing room, she takes off her old boy's pants and soiled work shirt, both heavy with earth and stinking of sweat. She slips into the sky blue dress and turns to face a full-length mirror fixed to the wall. The dress is too big for her, the hemline hanging well below her knees and the shoulder straps almost sliding off her collarbones. But it works, she tells herself. I'll grow into it, she tells herself. I'll grow. She straightens her hair. She allows herself half a smile. The sky-blue satin dress of her dreams. Something to wear through this nightmare. She walks out of the changing room, leaving her old clothes where they lie. Making her way through the boutique aisles, she hears a deafening siren that's so loud it rattles the shop front window. She rushes outside to the footpath. Soldiers and civilians sprinting in all directions. Nurses holding their hats as they run. Soldiers holding their helmets as they run towards defence posts. "They're coming back!" one civilian hollers, tripping over himself as he dashes away from a butcher's shop carrying a ham under each arm. The air raid siren wails again, and Molly turns her eyes to the sky. Another squadron of Japanese bombers approaching from the southwest. More bombers, more than 20 of them, attacking from the northeast. "They're gonna hit the airfield!" a soldier shouts. Then Molly feels as much as she hears the violent pressure wave of patterned bomb drops thudding into Darwin Earth. Flashes of yellow flame light the horizon, and black smoke shrouds the town like a low-hanging cloud from hell. And then, a red utility truck screams to a halt at the side of the dirt street, directly in front of Molly. Greta Mays leans over from the steering wheel and speaks through the open passenger side window. "Get in," she says, a lit cigarette hanging from her lips. Molly beams wide, slips immediately into the front seat. Another thundering drum roll of bombs shakes the town, and Greta Mays bounces in her seat. She drags on her smoke nonchalantly and gives her passenger a sideways look, noticing something new about the gravedigger girl. "Nice dress," she says, then slams her foot on the accelerator. The second sky gift. The man who hated gold. Eyes closed. He sleeps flat on his back amid 20 wounded men and women being rushed to Cullen Bay Civil Hospital in the back of an army transport truck that's been scouring Darwin streets for raid casualties. There's a weight on his chest that makes it hard for him to breathe, and this suffocating weight puts thoughts in his head. It's not a dream, but it's a memory that comes to him in his sleep. The same memory that always comes to him. Aubrey Hook is 15 years old, and he's being buried alive inside a gold mine, and he has the wherewithal to blame his impending death on true love. Love and hate. Man and woman. Rich and poor. Dirt and gold. His father, Arthur Hook, believed in absolutes and lived in them too. Arthur Hook loved Bonnie Little absolutely. Childhood sweethearts. They rode horses together. They rode through Howard Springs and Humpty Doo, and they rode all the way to Kakadu country, and Bonnie Little would let her wild auburn hair spill out from beneath her riding hat, and that hair was the colour of the gorge cliff tops that she'd stand upon, screaming her name, "Bonnie Little!" into the ancient echo chamber of a Kakadu chasm. They danced together in Darwin Town Hall, and they dreamed together of the things they would do once Arthur and his best friend and early gold mining partner, Tom Berry, got lucky in the Pine Creek goldfields. "You're my lucky strike, Bonnie Little," Arthur said with wide eyes. "You're my greatest find." Because that's what true love is, Arthur thought. True love is a pure gold vein in a dry hillside of dirt and stone. Some will never find that kind of gold seam. Some just don't have the nose for it. But he did. And he loved her absolutely. Until the day Bonnie Little fell in love with Arthur's best friend and gold mining partner, Tom Berry. "Tom," Arthur gasped. It was New Year's Eve. He and Bonnie were standing in a storeroom off the public bar in the Hotel Darwin. "Tom Berry," he gasped again. his best friend. The hapless, hopeless Tom Berry. Clumsy, awkward, bookish, meek, insecure, weak, poet, Tom Berry. The friend who begged Arthur to let him accompany him on horseback as he rode into the deep country in search of a gold seam. That schoolteacher type. That literate scholar who possessed, at once, a gold sense as keen as a melon, but a worrying gold lust like none Arthur had seen before. He'd nearly got himself killed only 2 months before, after blasting a hole with too much dynamite. And suddenly, on that New Year's Eve, Arthur wished he had. "I can't help how I feel, Arthur," Bonnie said. Arthur never believed a word of that sentence that fell so slowly from Bonnie's mouth, because he was a walking example of how a human can, in fact, help how they truly feel. Because he truly felt, every second of every hour of every day after he heard those words, like crushing Tom Berry's skull in two with a large piece of quartz. Yet he resisted that profound feeling and just turned away from how he felt. So why couldn't Bonnie Little help how she felt? From that day on, Arthur Hook could only hate Bonnie Little. And he hated her absolutely. But he hated Tom Berry twice as much as he hated Bonnie. And his hate for Tom Berry bled into what later seemed to his 15-year-old son, Aubrey, to be a hatred for all of life. Arthur hated the leaves that dropped from trees and gathered on his porch. He hated horses and the sound their hooves made on concrete. And he hated the smell of their droppings as he meandered through hillside paths and range tracks that he took with his young sons, Aubrey and Horace, on gold prospecting trips through Pine Creek country. He hated the woman he eventually married, June Buttigieg, the only daughter of Stanley Buttigieg, owner-operator of Darwin's fledgling Hollowwood Cemetery. Poor and sorry June, he told himself, with that lazy left eye that always sat like a fallen mango at the bottom of her eye socket whenever Arthur asked her questions about dinner or weather patterns or what it felt like to carry a child inside her belly. The gravedigger's daughter with the dead left eye. Pull that eye out and bury it 6 feet deep, he told himself. He hated the way June howled during childbirth, and he hated the smell of the black shit that burst from baby Aubrey's backside and over his fatherly fingertips. He hated the tea leaves that built up in the bottom of his teacup, and he hated the branches from the backyard oak tree that scratched against his tin roof, and he hated the sun that kept on rising and telling him to go to work, and he hated the sound of the fiddle players in the Hotel Darwin, and he hated the beer that warmed too quickly in his hand, and he hated anyone who wished good fortune on Tom Berry, because he hated Tom Berry most of all. Arthur beat his sons. He beat the backs of their ducking heads with his closed fist, and each beating made him hate Tom Berry even more, because he blamed Tom Berry for stealing the only thing he ever loved and turning him into the kind of man who beats his sons. He beat his sons with rocks and whip handles and sticks and fists, and then he watched his sons grow into muscular teenaged boys who beat each other. "Hate's not such a bad thing," he told his boys once, swigging whiskey under campfire light on a long Pine Creek gold search. "Never underestimate the power of hate. My hate for Tom Berry is what gets me up in the morning. I hate him so much that it gives me the energy I need to work those mines. I hate him so much I want to steal every piece of gold he'll ever hope to get his hands on. And I will. I'll do it. My hate for Tom Berry's gonna make us rich." And Arthur Hook drank his whiskey, and his head turned to his sons, looking through the flames of the campfire. "What do you boys hate?" he asked. And Aubrey and Horace turned to each other, both knowing the other's answer, but not giving it. Arthur Hook grew to hate the very gold he was seeking to find. He grew to hate the very mountains that hid the gold he despised. He hated the hills and valleys and ranges that kept their gold secrets from him. In the pubs of Darwin Town, he would hear whispers of Tom Berry's successes in the goldfields, and he would be enraged, and he would curse the earth that chose to smile on such a deceitful man as Tom Berry and ignore a decent, hard-working miner such as Arthur. He drove his pickaxe into those hills, and every wild swing was an act of vengeance. Fellow prospectors often questioned his reckless approach. He cut great trenches into the earth, but he never took the time to repair the holes he dug, leaving the mountain wounded. Older gold miners would pass his digs and shake their heads. "That mountain's going to turn on him one day," they said, because the older gold miners knew what the blacks knew about the mountain, about the Northern Territory earth. It felt things, mysterious things, and it rewarded the prospector who felt those things too. And it punished, they said in campfire whispers, the prospector who ignored those mysteries. Hate drove Arthur Hook to ride horseback with his sons deep into the scrub beyond Marikai Crossing, east of fruitful Mount Bundy and the nearby Rustler's Roost gold mine, seeking the long-lost and near-mythical Black Leg Mine. It was named after its owner, Percy Blackleg Gould, a seasoned prospector whose left leg had become wedged under a fallen rock in a trench when he was 22. By the time Percy was found, his leg had turned gangrenous and black, and it had to be cut off and replaced with a wooden peg that he walked on for 4 more decades before disappearing somewhere in the hills between the Rustler's Roost mine and Mount Ringwood along the Margaret River. The Black Leg Mine was said to contain great riches, just waiting for anyone brave or foolish enough to try to hack through its unstable and unpredictable rocks. Arthur Hook found what he thought was the Black Leg Mine after he and his sons rode along a precarious cliff-edge track that skirted Dead Bullock Needle, a natural obelisk pointing 150 feet into the sky that wandering and lost cows and sheep have tried and failed to skirt around for centuries, their bones left to rot beside the trunks of tall native trees some 100 yards beneath the cliff-edged needle base. Beyond the needle, along a winding track through thick bush, wide enough for only one horse, Arthur Hook reached the entrance to the mine, a hole in the ground in which stood a long ladder with 40 or so rungs. He climbed down with a lamp, then followed a tunnel to a rock face crossed by a rich vein of white quartz, and that quartz sent a shiver down Arthur Hook's spine. And he knew that shiver for what it meant: gold. He explained to his sons how millions of years ago pockets of liquid had turned solid inside rocks, trapping free-flowing grains and nuggets of gold, and how these gold-bearing quartz veins had waited ever since for the Hook boys to find them and dig them out and make their fortune. "It's like big old bank vaults that are locked up down there," Arthur Hook said, and he raised his pickaxe. "And we got the key to the lock." And Arthur Hook swung his axe at that underground rock face as if it were the face of Tom Berry himself. He hacked at it, slashed it, and smashed it. And for 3 straight weeks, he and his sons worked on that face, Aubrey and Horace lugging buckets of mined ore up the ladder and over to a nearby creek, where they sorted through rocks and panned the most promising dirt, letting lighter materials wash away down the creek and waiting, hoping, for the heavy gold to sparkle at the dirty bottoms of their pans. But the gold never showed itself, and a rage grew inside Arthur Hook. "Where are you?" he screamed. "Where are you?" And his axe swung, and the muscles in his wire skeleton and no-meat body tore, and he coughed and spluttered, and all the rock dust he was sucking into his lungs. It was Aubrey who told his father he was working too hard on the rock face, too fast, who told him he wasn't respecting the mountain as he should, that he was too reckless, too hungry, too vengeful, that they were moving too fast through the tunnel and they were not propping up the roof of their dig hole with sufficient wooden frames. But his father did not listen, could not listen, because his father was someone else. He was now a man with a yellow light in his eyes, a fire in his eyes, gold in his eyes. He was overcome by the lust for gold, the hatred for gold, the absolutes of it all. And it was Aubrey who was at the rock face with the ore bucket, standing 6 safe feet behind his father's flailing rock hammer when 20 feet of unsupported rock ceiling caved in on father and son. Aubrey saw the tunnel ceiling fall in on his father first and had time enough to turn and kneel down on the ground with his head towards his crotch and his arms over his skull and brace for the cave-in. 2 large boulders wedged a pocket of air around his face, which was pushed hard against the ground, and grey rock dust and debris pressed on his back, and for 3 full minutes he breathed the shortest of breaths while waiting for the oxygen in that small pocket of air to be used up. And in his final moments beneath that terrifying rubble blanket, he discovered the only thing in life he cared about. It was a girl. The image of her entered his mind. She was spinning in a white dress at the school dance that past summer. Violet Berry, the teenaged daughter of Tom and Bonnie Berry. Violet Berry, with the curly brown hair and blue eyes and deep red lipstick. Violet Berry, who he was not supposed to talk to under any circumstances, and that had suited him fine, because he always knew she would blind him, make him deaf and dumb, were he to stand too close to those eyes. An angel too precious to say hello to, much less asked to square dance. But now he was so close to death that he had the courage to make a pact with himself. If I survive this cave-in, he thought, I will ask Violet Berry to go riding one Sunday afternoon. And then he felt a shovel scraping at the rubble mound above him. He felt a boulder give way and the weight of the cave-in release its suffocating pressure on his chest. Then another boulder was removed, and a shovel was frantically digging into the mound, scraping, hauling, shifting the pressure away from Aubrey's body. Soon, the dirt around him was loose enough that he could push his right-hand fingers up through it, and those fingers found other fingers, his brother's hand. And Horace pulled with all his strength. Pulled so hard on his older brother's right arm that Aubrey thought it might come clean away from his shoulder. Horace pulled, and soon he could see his brother's hair buried in the dirt, coloured grey by the rock dust. Then he saw his face, so grey that it looked like Aubrey had turned to stone beneath that rubble. Finally, his brother emerged with the air-sucking gasp of a vampire that had been trapped in a coffin for 500 years, and Horace fell on his backside beside his coughing and spluttering older brother, and the 2 boys looked at the impenetrable rubble wall before them, knowing they both now had to dig for their father, who was lying somewhere beyond it. But something mysterious kept them from reaching for their shovels and pickaxes. It was a strange and powerful force running through them both, something they knew never to underestimate. It was hate. On the army transport, flat on his back between the human rubble of bloodied bodies, Aubrey Hook wakes with a deep and loud suck on Darwin air. His chest rises, then falls back hard on the transport tray, He's punch-drunk and dazed. He looks around him. Men and women. Soldiers, mostly. Some have died during the trip. Their eyelids and their mouths still open. Hands on their hearts. The truck bounces along the uneven streets, motoring fast. Then it brakes and skids to a halt outside Cullen Bay Civil Hospital. 2 shirtless soldiers pull the truck's rear tray guard down and begin hauling the bodies onto hospital stretchers. More soldiers come, reach for the hands and feet of the dead and wounded. Aubrey stands. His head spins, but to his surprise, he can actually walk now, and so he staggers to the side of the tray and slides off the back.
"You need to lie down, mister,"
says a young soldier, hauling the dead body of an elderly woman out of the truck. Aubrey says nothing. He coughs up a mouthful of blood and spits it onto the brown dirt by his boots, then looks down at his soiled shirt, blood spattered and bomb-torn. He shuffles away from the army transport, his head turned to the hospital entrance, where nurses and police officers and soldiers carry too many bodies into the casualty ward. Movement all around him, and he moves so slow. 1 foot after the other, finding his balance. In his clouded mind, he tries to find purpose. What just happened? Where was he going? What does he need to do now? And he fixes on an image in his head. Molly Hook and Greta Mays standing over him. The brown-haired gravedigger girl and the blonde-haired actress. There is a temporary medical station under a tarpaulin outside the hospital. A nurse is handing out canvas water bags to soldiers. "I need 2, Aubrey says softly, his body aching with the effort of speaking. A wooden bucket filled with fruit stands beside the nurse's table. Aubrey reaches for a banana and 2 large orange and red mangoes. He sits in the gutter on the footpath outside the hospital and glugs down the water. Sinks his teeth into the skin of a mango and drives his face hard into its juicy flesh like a rabid dog. Only animal now. Primal. A beast with no past. A beast with only one goal. To find the gravedigger girl and the actress. An olive-coloured Model A Ford pulls into the hospital driveway. The driver rushes around to the rear left passenger door, grabs the hands of a wounded man in a suit and drags him cumbersomely out of the seat. Aubrey recognises the driver as Frank Roach, one of the business managers at the Bank of New South Wales on Smith Street. Frank Roach pants and strains as he drags the body of his friend along the ground, his arms hooked under the man's armpits. Roach spots Aubrey watching him from the gutter. "Oh, don't just sit there," he barks. "Help me, damn it!" Aubrey shuffles over wearily, lifts the man's legs and helps place him on a stretcher at the hospital entrance. "Thank you," a breathless Roach says to Aubrey, who nods silently. Roach follows 2 soldiers as they drag the stretchered man into the casualty ward. Aubrey turns away from the hospital and returns to the fruit and water bags he has left by the gutter. Then he walks casually to the driver's side of Frank Roach's Model A Ford. He starts the car and coughs up another mouthful of blood that he spits out the window. Only animal now. He slams his foot on the accelerator and the wind through the car window refreshes him. But there is something more mysterious than wind keeping him upright, keeping him breathing in one last buried pocket of air. Something dangerous and energising that is fueling him from the inside. And as the Ford speeds south out of Darwin, he knows this mystery force for what it is. He learned long ago not to underestimate its power. Only animal now. Only hate. 9 northern dingoes. Her face is stained with the stomach blood of the wallaby she ate yesterday. She doesn't bark, she moans. and the sound of that moan tells the younger ones in the pack that she is second in charge behind her partner, the dominant male, who walks ahead. Her coat is fire-coloured, but the fur on her feet is the colour of snow. She knows a ripple of disharmony has spread through the pack. The dry season was lean, and she was forced to kill the newly born pups of another pack mother, as much to maintain her own authority as to allow the spoils of pack kills to spread further. She's been walking through the boggy wetlands for most of the day, and she is hungry and tired and wants to go home. But ahead, her partner stops behind the screen of a purple turkey bush, so she snorts twice and the rest of the pack instantly freeze behind her. She lightens her step and moves to her partner, stopping when her nose reaches his right hind leg. She is old, but she is younger than him and has better vision, and she sees immediately the subject of his gaze. A field of bush apple trees in the distance, the likes of which neither of them has ever seen. The trees are so plentiful and so closely bunched together that the apples on their branches have formed a vast red apple roof that is now sheltering a small herd of wild water buffalo at rest. She purrs softly to her partner, informing him that she, too, can see the buffalo calf drinking from a small water build-up some distance away from the rest of the herd. She can twist her neck to face almost directly behind her, and her feet do not even move when she turns to signal to the rest of the pack that it's time to hunt. Tear-driven. Momentum. No going back, Molly, she tells herself. For the first time in your life, you are only moving forward. You might have a copper pan scrawled with directions, but there is only one way to go now. Here to there. Molly to Bob. No going back. An avenue of creamy pink Northern Territory salmon gums and a red utility truck running between them on a narrow and damp red dirt road, filled with dry holes and full puddles. Beyond the scrub to Molly's left is the rail line running south to Alice Springs. Momentum. Destiny. She feels this. Every moment in her life unfolding precisely as it needed to in order to place the gravedigger girl right here, in a fast car beside the actress. Faster, Molly says. You want to drive? Greta responds, weaving the vehicle through deep potholes in the road. She brakes at a flooded road crossing. We can make it across, Molly says. What makes you so sure? Greta asks. Because we're meant to make it across, she says. We've only just begun. There's no way they'd make us stop so soon when we've only just begun. Who's they? Everybody, Molly says. Everything. Greta hits the accelerator and the truck powers into a stretch of floodwater that rises above its old worn rubber tyres and halfway up the front grille. More gas, and Greta keeps the steering straight, and Molly gives her driver an encouraging pat on the shoulder. Almost there, she says. Keep going. The car feels like it will stall, but Greta presses harder on the accelerator and the wheels grip the road and the truck lurches back out of the flooded crossing. Molly claps her hands. Pass me one of them smokes, will ya? Greta asks. Molly taps a cigarette from Greta's pack and lights it for her with 2 confident strikes of a match. She passes the lit smoke to Greta, who sticks it in the left corner of her lips, where all cigarettes seem to Molly to belong. You need anything else? Molly asks. I got food? Water? Greta turns to Molly, raises her eyebrows. We're going to need more of both, you know, she says. I know, Molly says. I know how to get more of both too. More tips from your boyfriend, Tyrone Power. He's not my boyfriend, Molly says. He's not? I thought you two were going to run away together. Molly shakes her head. She looks out the window, 2 sapphire blue butterflies are bobbing around a Leichhardt tree with the kind of glossy green leaves Molly can fan her face with in high summer, and yellow and white flowers that look to Molly like peeled oranges sitting on lollipop sticks. "So when's this turn-off coming?" Greta asks.
"Soon,"
Molly says.
"Read that pan out again, will ya?"
Greta asks. Molly doesn't have to read from the pan. She knows the words by heart.
"The longer I stand, the shorter I grow," she recites, "and the water runs to the silver road."
Then she sniffs. She's got something stuck up her nose. A ball of dried blood. A clump of dirt? Ash, maybe. "Why did he write all these directions in riddles?" Greta asks, frustrated. "Why didn't he just say straight up where the bloody gold was?"
"Because those riddles were just for him,"
Molly says. She blows her nose into her cupped hand.
"He didn't want anyone else to know what he was talking about. But maybe he wanted my mum to know, and maybe he wanted me to know one day, and he knew we'd understand. We'd understand what he was talking about because we look at the world the same way he does. Because we're poetic."
Molly sticks half a forefinger up her nose. "You're poetic?" Greta asks.
"Yeah, poetic and graceful, like how my mum taught me to be,"
Molly says, not looking at Greta as she pulls a large black ball of snot from her nose and flicks it casually out her window. Greta shakes her head. "You sure you know where you're going?"
"Yeah,"
Molly says.
"You sure you want to come with me?"
Greta gives a half smile, eyes fixed on the narrow side road that bends now past a row of honeysuckle trees with showy orange flowers that look to Molly like big, fat, orange caterpillars who have enjoyed too much plonk, which is why they're crawling aimlessly across the tops of those silvery fern leaves.
"Why did you come back for me?"
Molly asks. "Because you're going to take me to all that shiny gold," Greta says. "And then I'm going to fly away to Hollywood like you said." Molly smiles with her lips closed.
"I think there was something else you came back for,"
she says, and the grave digger girl turns her head to study Greta's face, and she watches her driver drag hard on her smoke, and then she looks past Greta's perfect profile, past her bruised and swollen left eye and the line of her forehead and the straight bridge of her nose, to a line of trees on the right-hand side of the road, and among those trees she sees movement. Something black and fast. 4 legs, long black horns. Then something else beside it coming out of the trees. Charging. "Watch out!" Molly screams, and Greta turns her head just in time to see 9 large water buffalo, frightened and reckless, charging at full speed through the scrub and onto the thin dirt road. Behind them, Molly sees streaks of yellow-orange fur, 2 vicious dingoes pursuing the smallest buffalo in the herd. One buffalo loses its footing in the uneven roadside and careens unstoppably into Greta's door, horns crashing into the moving metal. The fierce impact causes Greta to yank the steering wheel hard left, and the truck slides across the slippery dirt road. Then she reefs the wheel right and straightens the vehicle just as another confused and breathless buffalo charges across the road in front of her. Greta instantly turns hard right again, sending the truck flying down the sharp incline at the side of the road towards a thick cluster of stringy bark trees. Then she stamps on the flat metal brake lever and the utility glides on the wet grass until it crashes hard into the trees. Though, thankfully, not hard enough to make Molly's forehead traverse the mere 3 inches of air required for her head to make contact with the windscreen. The buffalo charge on and through the wall of scrub lining the left side of the road, and Greta's neck whips back and forth, and she's so disturbed by what's happened that her fingers remain fixed to the steering wheel. She drops her head, breathes deeply. Then she says, "Let me get this straight. We just survived an aerial bombing from the Japs, right?"
"That's right,"
Molly says. "Then we set off in search of buried treasure."
"That's correct."
"Then we got attacked by a bunch of wild water buffalo."
"I wouldn't say attacked," Molly says, but definitely fair to say we were charged by about 10 water buffalo. What now? Greta asks. Now we walk. Molly grips Bert the shovel and grabs the shoulder strap of her duffel bag. She slips out of the truck and closes the door, turns to talk through the open window. I'm glad you came back for me, Greta. I wish I could say the same thing, Molly, Greta says, resting her head in her hands. I know why you came back for me, Greta. You do, Greta replies, rubbing the whiplashed muscles in her neck. You were worried about me, Molly says, and that thought makes the gravedigger girl smile as she walks on down the narrow road. Greta watches the girl through 2 cracks that now curve across the windscreen. That strange child. Every last dark thing she's witnessed so far today. And she wonders what mysterious, unstoppable force must be flowing inside that girl to make her do what she is doing up there on that road now. The gravedigger girl is skipping. An empty dirt road separating bushland walls of banksias with furry yellow flowers that stick out from their branches, like hot corn cobs spitting butter. And these trees grow beside weeping paperbark shade trees that do their grieving in the open through outbursts of creamy white flowers that look to Molly like Greta Garbo's eyelashes when they flutter in silver screen distress. You ever been in deep country? Molly asks, using Bert the shovel as a walking stick. Can't say I have, Greta says, her eyes on the growing amount of road dirt flicking up on her canvas saddle shoes. You're gonna love it, Molly says. There's so many things you can see there. It's like a different world once you're really inside it. There's magic in there, Greta. You can start to see things the way the animals see things. Sounds like you've been in deep country many times, Greta says. Yeah, Molly says, marching on. In my head I have. Brute wandering. Molly knows the secret to a long walk. Never think about the destination. Just think about the air in your lungs, the motion of your arms and legs. There is a rhythm to it, and once you have found it, that rhythm can tick-tock through time forever. She loves the great riddle of walking. The more you take, the more you leave behind. Footsteps. And she looks behind her to see her footsteps stretching as far as she can see, along the road that winds back through ironbark borders. Don't think of the destination. Think of the red-tailed black cockatoo up there in the stringy bark, with scarlet panels beneath its tail flaps, like fire is fueling its takeoff. And marvel at the way it flies through the sky. It doesn't fly like falcons and kites fly. Instead, its wings work hard, like the bird is rowing through the sky. Rowing upstream through air. Cockatoo! Molly points. Woo-hoo, Greta says, slapping a fat mosquito with an abdomen full of her own blood. We any closer to this turn-off? Yep, Molly says, but her attention is taken by something resting on the branch of a billy-goat plum tree. Stick insect, she whispers, approaching the cryptic creature with soft footsteps. The insect is the same straw colour as the branch it rests on. This fella has the most beautiful colouring hidden under his wings, Molly says. Listen, kid, are you going to stop and gaze at every little creature you find among the trees? Greta replies. Just the ones worth gazing at. Molly beams, then moves closer to the insect. You ever wonder why things are the way they are, Greta? She whispers. What if this fella was supposed to be right here on this leaf in this very moment? What if he was put here to remind you and me about something? Like what? Greta asks. Like how pretty it all really is, Molly replies. Who decided that gold would be worth so much anyway? I'd take this fella over a gold pebble any day of the week.
She blows gently on the stick insect, and the lanky creature raises its head and tail and moves its wings to make a hissing sound, and that movement reveals its great treasure, its glorious spoils. A vivid pink at the base of its hind wings, a pink so deep and appealing to Molly that it makes her giggle.
"You're all right, mate," she says. "Don't be scared. This is Greta Mays, and I'm Molly Hook. We're heading deep into your scrub now because I got to find Longcoat Bob. But don't worry about us, okay? Greta and me, we're the good people. We're the good guys."
The insect's head ducks back down and the creature creeps on along the branch. Molly smiles at Greta, then returns to the dirt road.
"Not far now," she says.
A bridge with no guardrails on its sides, stretching 20 feet across the thin, freshwater creek running beneath it. The bridge is made of railway sleepers that are permanently wet and rotting. Molly stops in the middle of the bridge and she rests her backside on the edge of a sleeper, letting her legs and her dig boots dangle over the creek. From her duffel bag, she pulls her water bag and glugs down 4 mouthfuls of rusty Darwin tap water, before throwing the bag to Greta, who splashes water across her sweaty face and enjoys a refreshing drink.
"The longer I stand, the shorter I grow,"
Molly recites. She opens a small tin of pineapple pieces with a rusted can opener, sucks the syrupy juice down first, and lifts the wedges of preserved pineapple to her mouth with grubby fingers. Her eyes follow the flow of the creek, which disappears into a tunnel of foliage, where monsoon vines and scrub and weed have woven together to create a perfect cylinder that snakes off into the blackness. That tunnel, Molly thinks, could be just big enough for the old Garn train to Adelaide to run through.
"They say you can't see nothing in the daylight further up this creek," she says out loud. "It gets so dark up there you need a candle to find your way out, even in the daytime."
Molly looks round at Greta.
"That's how it got its name. Candlelight Creek."
She turns back to the tunnel.
"The longer I stand, the shorter I grow," Molly repeats.
Greta nods her head, something dawning on her. "A candle," she says. Molly nods.
"Candlelight Creek, the water that leads to the Silver Road."
"You plan on walking up there?" Greta asks.
"That's the way to the Silver Road," Molly says.
Greta feels a cold shiver in her bones.
"It gives me the willies,"
she says, looking deep into the tunnel. "You ever been up there?"
"My dad told me never to walk up Candlelight Creek," Molly replies.
"Why?"
"He said it's very dangerous."
"What makes it so dangerous? What's up there?"
"Dunno."
"What do you mean you don't know?"
"Dad never told me."
"Why not?"
"I was never supposed to go up there, so why would he tell me what's up there?"
Molly stands and grips Bert the shovel tight as she slides down a steep, mossy embankment connected to the side of the bridge, which leads to a path running adjacent to Candlelight Creek. "Maybe we should respect your father's wishes," Greta says, standing nervously at the top of the embankment.
"Silver Road's the only way to your gold," Molly says. "And wherever that gold is, I reckon Longcoat Bob won't be too far from it."
Greta stares deep into the tunnel of foliage, her bones tingling. "You got any candles?" she asks. The deep country creaks and moans. Soon, the gravedigger girl and the actress are so far up Candlelight Creek they can no longer see where the creek begins or ends. The water is clear, but there's so little light under the archway foliage that the creek looks black and glassy. The thick monsoon vine forest lining the creek narrows and encloses to a kind of natural and suffocating tube of wild growth, only 10 feet wide in some parts, their feet stepping and sliding over moss-covered bank boulders lining the water. The relentless ear scratch of cicadas, the smell of mud and earth and mangrove. Greta's foot slips on the slimy buttress root of a blush satin ash tree, and her increasingly damaged saddle shoes land in the shallow left edge of the creek. Gripping the handle end of Bert the shovel, which Molly extends to her, she pulls herself back out. "Why do you want to find this long coat bob so bad anyway?" Greta asks. Molly pauses to think on this. "I'm gonna ask him to lift the curse," she says. Greta takes a moment to get her breath. "You know, Molly, there's such a thing as rotten luck, and it's a fact of life that it lands on some people more regularly than others." Another deep breath. Molly nods. "I know." "Do you think we should talk about what happened to your dad back there?" Molly turns, looks back up the creek. "Nah, I don't think we need to talk about that." She moves on. Thick jungle now. A closed canopy of palms and ferns and wild weed. Strangler figs germinating in the forks of trees, their aerial roots wrapping round their life-giving hosts and slowly killing them. Vines and climbers merging and turning into suffocating monsters in the dark that seem to whisper to each other. Molly can hear them, talking about the gravedigger girl and all she has seen in her short life, and why she's come so deep into Candlelight Creek, and about her troubled father, the good man and the bad man all at once, wedged into the fork of a tree, his leg blown off and resting by a thunderbox. Poor little gravedigger girl. "You reckon Uncle Aubrey is still alive?" Molly asks. Greta pushing along the creek edge, her hands pulling a spiky fern frond away from her face. "I fear it's going to take more than a world war to finish off your uncle." "Stop," Molly says. "What?" Molly frozen stiff. "Stop moving," she whispers. She stares up along the creek. "See up there? Eyes in the water." Greta leans forward to peer further up the creek. She mistakes it for a log at first. Then two milky white eyes blink in the glassy water. "Shit," Greta says. The eyes disappear beneath the water, and then the eyes reappear, breaking the water closer to Molly and Greta on the creek edge. "Crocodile," Molly whispers. She can see the creature's body clearly now, almost 12 feet in length, half of that being its tail. Green-brown scales that shimmer in the water, colours blending like the insides of gemstones, a skin as ancient and earth-born as the old rocks she finds deep beneath Hollowwood Cemetery. A long snout and a thick jaw and rows of blood-stained, conical teeth. Teeth for biting into lizards and bats and rats and wallabies and gravedigger girls who stepped too far out of Darwin. Then a second pair of milky white eyes emerges behind the lead crocodile, and then a third pair of eyes emerges beside the second one. "You see them?" Greta asks nervously. "We need to go back, Molly." "Wait," Molly says. "They're freshies. Freshwater crocs aren't like saltwater crocs. They don't attack like salties. Freshies are more..." She searches for the right word. "Graceful." "What are you talking about?" Greta replies. "Graceful? For fuck's sake, let's go!" "Sam says he talks to these fellas," Molly says. This is the end of CD 5. The book continues on CD 6. CD 6. The lead crocodile inflates its body. A warning sign. Go back where you came from. "This is Longcoat Bob doing this," Molly says. "He sent these fellas to scare us. He doesn't want us coming any further." "Mol,
I'm afraid you're talking bullshit now, kid, Greta says. Let's go back. I'm not talking bullshit, Molly says. Didn't you wonder why all them water buffalo were charging at us like that? Bob sent them for us too. They were scared of something and they were running from it, Greta says. That's the natural response, you see, Molly. When you're scared of something, like, I don't know, say seeing 3 adult crocodiles halfway up Black-ass Candlelight fucking Creek. Let's go, now, Molly. I'm not going back, Molly says. That's what Longcoat Bob wants. He wants us to scramble at the first sniff of trouble. Nope, not me. Sorry, Bob.
The crocodiles swim closer, their slender bodies snaking stealthily through the water. Molly grips Bert the shovel. Then she talks to the crocodiles.
My name's Molly Hook, and this is Greta Mays, she says.
The 3 crocodiles pause in the water, all eyes on the humans.
Greta's a gifted actress who's going to make it to Hollywood one day. I'm just a girl from Darwin, and I've come up here looking for Longcoat Bob.
Molly waits for a response from the crocodiles, but they say nothing.
The Japs bombed Darwin all to hell.
She breathes deep, thinks of something else to say.
They blew my dad to bits. I found him in a tree. That bomb must have lifted him right up off the ground.
Greta moves closer to Molly now. She rests a hand on the girl's shoulder.
My dad was all right. He had his problems, but he still loved me. He did.
And Molly wants to cry in front of these crocodiles. And maybe this is what people mean when they talk about crocodile tears. What you shed when you talk to crocodiles about your dead dad. Cry, Molly. Cry. They'll let you pass if you cry for them. Cry, Molly. Cry. But she can't. And she tilts her head up to find the sky, but there's no sky to be seen this far up Candlelight Creek.
So I'm going to ask Longcoat Bob if he could stop all the bad things that keep happening to me, Molly says. And if you fellas could just sit right there and let us pass, we'll walk on up this creek and we'll thank you for your grace.
Molly waits for a response. The crocodiles lie still, and Molly nods her head confidently. She fixes the strap on her duffel bag, pulls it tight over her shoulder. She grips Bert the shovel in both hands like a spear, and she walks on along the creek edge.
Follow me. Now,
Molly whispers to Greta under her breath. Greta watches Molly walk innocently, almost casually, past the crocodiles, and she follows hurriedly in her footsteps. Her eyes can't help but turn to the trio of toothy creatures, who remain deathly still as their eyes, 3 sets of cold and ghostly and milky eyes with dark, coin-slot pupils, follow every last movement of the actress's clumsy course across the slippery ancient rocks that line their creek home. Greta moves so fast that she eventually overtakes Molly.
Faster! Greta says, faster!
40 more minutes of walking and the creek bends away to the right, and Greta can see a patch of grey light at the end of the tunnel. Come on, she says. We're almost out. She hurries along the creek bank, her movements more assured now. Greta, in a summer satin dress, emerald-coloured, which shimmers when it finally finds the light of a clearing that extends from the end of the suffocating tunnel to a vast freshwater floodplain covered in pink and red lotus lily flowers that stand tall out of submerged rootstocks connected to smooth, green, rounded leaves, so wide and flat they look to Molly like circular steps she could walk on to make her way across the deepest wetland pools.
Look at this place!
Greta screams. The actress starts to run, and she breathes the wetland air deep into her lungs, and she raises her arms to the sun. To her left is a billabong of vivid water lilies, like something from her wildest twilight dreams. Perfect suns of gold rising from the centre of each purple flower. To her right is a field of white snowflake lilies, their showy flowers like ostrich feathers, made of the desiccated coconut flakes in which she rolls her freshly iced lamingtons on a lazy Sunday afternoon. "What is this place?" Greta hollers back at Molly, and Molly screams back to the actress in delight, "It's Australia!" They walk on for a few miles, their shoes sloshing through thick green grass that grows from water that in places reaches up to Molly's kneecaps. It is at least cooling. Greta cups 3 handfuls and splashes them across her face. At a small build-up of water in a circle of speargrass, Molly kneels down with her grandfather's prospector's pan and washes away the hard cemetery earth that masks the mysterious etchings on its battered underside. Greta stands at Molly's shoulder, drinking from the water bag. Molly studies the pan. It's smaller than she remembers it being. She runs her fingers over the etched words her grandfather wrote to himself, and maybe, just maybe, to his daughter and his daughter's daughter. "The longer I stand, the shorter I grow, and the water runs to the silver road." Molly's dirt-caked forefinger traces the carefully drawn line that meanders down the circular base, taking occasional lefts and rights to a second set of words. West where the yellow fork man leads, east in the dark when the wood bleeds. The line is like a road, and the sets of words are like rest stops along that road. "This pan was a gift to me when I was 7 years old," Molly says. "My mum called it a sky gift. She said there are gifts that are always falling from the sky. This was one of the gifts that fell from the sky just for me, Greta. I looked up at the sky, and when I looked down again, my mum had disappeared into the bush, and I never saw her again. Then I turned around, and this pan was lying at my feet. I reckon she wanted me to have it, but I don't know why she wanted me to have it." "Maybe she wanted you to go find that gold for yourself," Greta says. "Maybe this pan is your inheritance. She wanted to give you something before—" Greta doesn't finish that sentence. "Before what?" Molly asks. "Before she had to go away." Molly scratches at the pan, soaks it in the water again, scrubs it with her fingers. "I think she wanted me to find Longcoat Bob," Molly says. She soaks the pan again, and a third set of words reveals itself in the afternoon light. "City of stone, 'tween heaven and earth, the place beyond your place of birth." Greta kneels down beside Molly for a closer look. "The place beyond your place of birth?" Greta considers. She dwells on this for a moment. "Where was your grandfather born?" "He was born in Halls Creek, across the border in Western Australia," Molly says. "Where were you born?" Greta asks. "I think I was born in Darwin Hospital like my mum," Molly says. "You got any idea what he's on about?" "Not yet," Molly replies. "We haven't gone deep enough yet to find out." She soaks the pan again, scrubs at the bottom of the base, and holds the pan up to the light once more. Her forefinger runs along more newly revealed words, and the mystery of them sends a shiver down her 12-year-old spine. "Own all you carry all you own. Step inside your heart of stone." "What's that supposed to mean?" Greta asks. "That's what Longcoat Bob said he was going to do with his curse," Molly says. "He said he would turn our true hearts to stone." Molly thinks of the blood-red rock she's carrying inside her duffel bag. "But how do you step inside a heart of stone?" Greta asks. "I don't know," Molly says. "Maybe we'll only know when we know.
We have to follow the path, one step at a time. She traces the map line with her fingernail. When we find the Silver Road, we follow this line going down here, and we look for things. I reckon my grandfather saw things like I see things sometimes. Maybe I'll be able to see what he saw when I see those same things.
Greta raises her eyebrows, takes another swig of water. So what do you see now, Molly? Molly's eyes follow the thin stretch of what's left of Candlelight Creek, which snakes through the wetlands towards what appear to be, a mile or maybe two in the distance, two towering red sandstone plateaus split by a deep and miraculous canyon.
The water runs to the Silver Road, Molly says. We follow the water to that range. The Silver Road is in there somewhere.
Then she turns her head to the sun.
But we'd best get there before dark.
And she keeps staring in the direction of that sun, because she can see a flash of silver in the sky beneath it. She puts a palm on top of her forehead and looks harder at the silver flash.
A plane!
Molly says. Greta turns her head to where Molly is looking. The silver plane moves closer. They can hear its engine now, the relentless buzz of its front propeller. Molly can tell how light and agile the plane is by the way it bobs and shudders in air pockets. But otherwise, it maintains a steady course that she comes to realise is leading it straight towards them. Greta stands, confused, eyes up to the sky as the plane flies over her head. Then she sees the red circles. The red, rising sun circles of paint on the underside edges of the plane's sparkling metal wings. A Japanese fighter plane. All this way from Japan via Pearl Harbor and the Darwin Central Business District. All that blue sky and the hornet buzz of the metal fighter cutting through it. It's a Jap, Greta says. But what's he doing all the way out here? The fighter zooms high over Greta's head and banks hard left and circles back around to where it came from. And Molly and Greta turn in a circle in the sloshy floodplain grass without taking their eyes off the plane.
What's he doing?
Molly asks.
I don't know,
Greta says. The fighter plane comes lower this time. It halves its speed and it circles Greta and Molly.
Should we run for it?
Molly asks. Greta scans the floodplain. No trees for shelter. There's an ochre-coloured termite mound taller than her, but it must be at least 100 yards from where she stands in the open wetland.
We'd be dead already if he wanted to kill us, she says.
She turns in another circle, following the fighter plane as it orbits the blonde actress in the shimmering emerald dress and the gravedigger girl in the sky blue dress that she hopes to dance in one day with handsome Sam Greenway, the buffalo hunter. The plane circles the girls once more, and this time it comes in so close and low that Greta can see directly into the plane's cockpit. The pilot is staring back at her. He leans hard left on his control stick, but his eyes don't care for direction. They appear to care only for the actress, whose saddle shoes are waterlogged in the wetland slush. Greta can see the man clearly now. A hard jawline beneath thick brown aviator goggles. A brown leather flight helmet, fur-lined, with its side flaps covering his ears. Then the engine seems to cut out and the plane appears to be gliding around her, and there is no sound, only a metal flight machine floating on the breeze and the machinery of her heart beating fast beneath her chest. The pilot won't stop staring at Greta, and now, to Molly's befuddlement, he raises his goggles to his forehead and his Japanese face looks stunned mullet puzzled by the actress. The silent plane looks to Molly like a bird. A grey brolga in the low sky with its big black wings outstretched, hovering effortlessly on an invisible wind. Then the engine rattles back to life, and the plane turns and roars back to where it came from, back towards the sun, before circling around once more, but higher now. It soars above Greta and Molly, and their eyes turn up to watch it flying towards the two red sandstone plateaus. And Greta and Molly watch the plane fly on its inexplicable course towards Red Rock, and their feet begin to move involuntarily because they are drawn to the image of that silver arrow moving in the sky. But then they stop in their tracks when they see the white mushroom cloud of a parachute with a pilot attached to it, falling from the fighter's cockpit. The aircraft flies on as the parachute spirals down towards the floodplain. Beyond the parachuting pilot, the plane nosedives in a great arc towards the plateaus, and it must be moving at 200 miles an hour or more when it meets a craggy outcrop of red rock and explodes into a brief ball of flame. Molly looks back to the pilot falling from the sky, and her feet want to move faster now. These feet have their own instincts, and she follows them. "Wait, Molly!" Greta calls.
"Come on, Greta!"
Molly says, sprinting across the floodplain.
"He wants to meet us!"
"He's a Jap, Molly," Greta says.
"He's our enemy, Molly, stop!" "He's not our enemy,"
Molly shouts behind her.
"He's our gift!"
Yukio Mickey's family short sword tucked into his belt. His brown leather flight boots making circles in the air as the parachute plummets in a spiral to the ground. He can't see anything on the ground that will help him plan a safe landing. Just long grass, wetlands, deep green and black pools of water, purple flowers, red flowers. His brown leather boots spin, and the world spins with them. Then he crashes hard and fast into a pool, so hard and fast that his boots touch the marshy bottom. There are reeds and grass spears beneath the surface that he struggles to kick through. He swallows water and pushes his way back up, arms and legs flailing to the surface, where he assesses the diameter of the small lagoon he has fallen into. One of its banks is only 8 or 9 meters from him, and he attempts to paddle to it, but the billowing canopy of his white silk parachute is sinking into the water, and pockets of it are growing heavy and threatening to pull him deep below the surface. His right hand reaches for the chute pack release buckle at his belly, but to open it, he must stop the furious dog paddling that is keeping his head above the water. He voluntarily sinks into the water and with 2 hands reefs at the buckle, but the heavy weight of the now sunken chute is pulling on the 2 metal connectors and jamming them in their sockets. He tugs again, but the buckle won't release, and he reaches momentarily for the Mickey family blade in his belt. But he needs more air, so he pushes back up to the surface and he sees the blue northern Australian sky above him, and he looks for the pool edge. And then he sees the girl and the woman. The girl carries a shovel, and she smiles, and she has brown hair, and she wears a sky blue dress and black boots. And then the woman appears beside her, panting and gathering her breath, that blonde hair that falls to one side over her face, the way she stands in the green dress. He notices there is pink and blue bruising around one of the blonde woman's eyes. And then those eyes, those perfect green eyes, find Yukio Mickey, and they reach into him, deep inside him, and he is immediately frozen by that stare. He has never seen a woman who looks like this, and something about her has turned his body to lead, to stone. And he can no longer wave his arms and legs about in the water to keep himself afloat, because she has frozen him with that face of hers. And he gargles on wetlands water as his dumb blank head sinks gradually below the surface again. And Yukio thinks for a moment how strange it is to die like this, and to have that vision, That woman with the green eyes is the last thing his tired eyes will see on earth. But something about it makes him feel better, makes him feel good and ready now for Takamonahara. It was all worth it. The training, the discipline, the punishment. He will go now, content with that final vision. He will sink into the plane of high heaven, and the last thing he will hear will be the voice of the Australian girl saying in English, "Swim! Swim!" His eyes are still open as he sinks down, and sunlight breaks through the water and lights the emerald greens in the floodplain pool, and he realizes that the water is the same color as the blonde woman's dress and eyes. And the sinking parachute drags him further, and the surface sunlight fades as he descends. It's nice down here, he realizes. If he does not fight against the pull of the chute, he could stay here and find peace in the emerald green. But then, through the last beams of sunlight, comes a wooden pole, a shovel handle, and Yukio reaches out instinctively for that lifeline as his body sinks deeper, and at first only 3 fingers of his left hand can grip its end, but that's enough to pull it towards him and get 4, then 5 fingers on it. And with those 5 fingers, he hauls himself back up towards the daylight, towards the sky. And the shovel handle keeps lifting him, and he rises to the surface to find the girl, that young girl, up to her chest in the water, pulling hard with all her strength, her bony left arm extending the shovel and her right arm gripped behind her by the 2 hands of the blonde woman, who pulls and heaves and pulls and heaves from the grassy bank. Soon, Yukio is close enough to the water's edge to plant a boot on the pool bottom and push hard with his legs while still dragging the buckle-jammed chute behind him. The young girl scrambles to land, and she rushes to a canvas duffel bag and finds a small paring knife she has wrapped in an old tea towel. She rushes to Yukio's shoulders and hacks back and forth rapidly at the chute-packed shoulder straps as Yukio leans forward hard at the water's edge. The straps snap free and the parachute pack sinks into the water, followed by the chute canopy, and Yukio falls face first onto the soggy ground. He raises his head to give thanks, but he sees the girl with the curled brown hair moving cautiously away from him, her eyes drawn to the pilot's waist. Not to the Mickey family sword tucked inside his flight belt, but to the black Japanese Army service pistol holstered at his side. She is frightened by the handgun. Yukio's hand moves instinctively to his waist. He will remove the pistol and holster. He will show the girl he means no harm. But then the shovel blade is suddenly inches from his eyes. "Don't you dare touch that gun," says Greta, gripping the shovel in both hands like it's a cricket bat, and she's set to knock the Japanese pilot's head over the nearest boundary fence. Yukio freezes, raises his arms, palms open towards the sky. "What are you doing this far south?" Greta probes. It's a theatrical performance. Today's role? Somebody tougher and harder than Greta Baumgarten ever was. One show only. She knows, deep down, she'll crumble into nervous stuttering any second now. Yukio speaks a series of Japanese words. "English?" Greta asks. "You speak any English?" Yukio says more Japanese words. Greta nods at Molly. "Molly, get that handgun there." Molly crawls in close to the pilot. She unbuttons the side holster and removes the pistol with its brown wooden handle and thin black barrel. "Come up here with me, Molly," Greta says. The girl springs to her feet and stands beside the actress. "Now point that thing at him. But, don't shoot him," Greta says. Molly takes a deep breath and exhales. "Don't you think that feels a little aggressive, pointing a gun at him?" she asks. "Him and his mates just blew up half of Darwin. I think we should feel a little aggressive. Greta says, if he moves, shoot him in the legs.
I can't be sure I'll do that, Greta,
Molly replies. I'll be aiming for his legs, but I'll probably get him in the head or something, and I don't want to kill any human being, even if his mates did blow up the milk bar on Bennett Street. From the ground, Yukio's squinting eyes look up into the sky as he slowly raises his hand and points between Molly and Greta. Hikoki, he says, softly, his finger pointing towards the falling sun. He makes the hand gesture of a plane moving through the sky. Hikoki. Molly and Greta turn their heads instinctively towards where Yukio is pointing and see nothing but blue sky. And Molly turns back just in time to find Yukio engaging her in a silent wrist bend, and then a near-invisible leg sweep that lands her, in the space of half a second, flat on her back and disarmed. Yukio now stands pointing his pistol at Greta.
How did you do that?
Molly asks, awed and elated. That was incredible. Yukio points at the shovel in Greta's hands, waves 2 fingers towards himself as he holds out his free left hand. Greta hands the shovel to the pilot. Yukio passes it straight to Molly. Doku ni iku no, he says, nodding. Molly takes the shovel. She remembers to be graceful.
Thank you,
she says to the fallen pilot. You don't have to use your manners around cold-blooded killers, Molly, spits Greta. Yukio waves the gun at Molly, directing her to move back beside Greta. Yukio stands soaking wet in his flight uniform, goggles on his forehead, keeping his dripping, fur-lined flight helmet in place. Not a single line on his face. High cheekbones and cheeks that would be fuller if he ate more. A large, deep brown freckle on his right cheek and 2 smaller ones above his top lip. He points at Greta and Molly. Doku ni iku no? He asks sharply. He points at them again. Then he gestures a walking motion with his left hand forefinger and middle finger. Australians. Then another walking finger gesture.
Where are we going?
Molly offers courteously. Yukio nods. Molly nods enthusiastically. She holds up a finger. You want to come with us? Molly asks, her words louder than they would be talking to Greta. Yukio nods. Wait, she says. I need to show you something. She rushes to her duffel bag, retrieves Tom Berry's copper pan, hands it to Yukio. He's immediately confused by the girl's presentation of the pan.
You use it to find gold in creeks, Molly says. Look on the back.
She makes a revolution with her finger.
Turn it over,
she says, and she moves closer to the pilot as he turns the pan over and studies the writing etched on its base.
We're on a great quest, Molly says.
She runs her finger over the words. Yukio turns his eyes back to Greta, keeps his weapon on her. Molly, oblivious to any possible tension in the moment.
These are directions and clues to buried treasure, she says, wide-eyed. A pile of gold sitting in the ground.
She holds her palms together like she's carrying a large gold nugget.
Gold, she says.
She points at Greta.
Greta wants to find that gold because she's convinced no harm can come to her from keeping that gold because she doesn't believe in curses,
Molly says, talking too fast because she's nervous, because she's on her way to find Longcoat Bob, because she's free.
All that hocus pocus, she calls it.
Molly smiles. Confusion across Yukio's face. Hocus pocus, he says, doing his best to repeat the words accurately. The pilot turns to Greta, who rolls her eyes.
I don't care about the gold. Molly continues. I just want to find Longcoat Bob. He's the bloke who put a curse on my family because the buried gold was his and my grandfather stole it. But then my grandfather put that gold back because all these terrible things started happening to him and his family members. But even after he put the gold back, Longcoat Bob never lifted his curse from my grandfather, Tom, and all those terrible things kept happening.
Molly is making her own realizations as her explanation is unfolding.
And now, those terrible things are all happening to me.
Yukio struggles to make the slightest sense of Molly's words. Curse, he says, repeating an English word vaguely familiar to his ear.
Yeah, curse,
Molly says. Yukio makes a walking gesture with his fingers. You? He prompts.
We're walking to the range,
Molly says, pointing at the 2 red sandstone plateaus in the distance.
We're going to find the Silver Road, and then we're going to find Longcoat Bob.
Bob, Yukio says.
Yeah, Bob,
Molly says. Yukio waves his handgun towards the sandstone range. Aruku, he says. He waves his gun again.
Sorry, I don't speak Japanese,
Molly says. Another walking gesture with his fingers. Aruku.
Walk?
Molly guesses.
Walk,
Yukio repeats. Molly turns to Greta. He wants us to walk, she says happily. Greta shakes her head. Molly throws her duffel bag over her shoulder.
You coming with us?
She asks Yukio, bright and optimistic. Aruku, Yukio says blankly. Molly marches off through wetland grass up to her thighs.
I think he's coming with us,
she shouts to Greta, who runs to catch up with her. Yukio falls in behind them, his handgun pointing at Greta's back.
Have you lost your mind?
Greta whispers.
What?
Molly ponders, innocently. He's not coming with us, Molly. You think he parachuted out of his fighter plane and floated all the way down here just so he could take a gentle stroll with us? Molly looks back over her right shoulder to see Yukio sloshing through the grass, the handgun still firmly gripped in his right fist. Molly gives him a warm smile, turns back to Greta. He's gonna help us, Greta, she says, never more certain of anything. Molly, wake up, Greta says. He's going to walk us into the foothills of that range, and he's gonna shoot you between the eyes, and he's gonna rape me, and if you're lucky, kid, it won't be the other way round.
You think he's a bad one?
Molly whispers. It doesn't matter what one he is, Greta says. That army came here to kill us, Molly. They've got it in for us, and the kind of hate they're carrying is a spell that can't be lifted. You just be ready to pass me that shovel when I give you the sign. Okay, Molly says. Yukio watches the blonde-haired woman and the brown-haired girl with the shovel trudge across the soggy floodplain.
Greta,
whispers Molly. Yes, Greta whispers back.
What's the sign gonna be?
Molly asks.
It doesn't matter, Molly. You'll know the sign when you see it.
Yukio sees the girl raise her right fist and extend her thumb from it.
What about a thumbs up?
Molly suggests. I was thinking something a little more subtle, Greta says. Just a nod will do. You'll know the nod when you see it. Keep walking. They walk for another 30 yards or so through an open field.
Greta,
Molly whispers. Yes, Molly.
He can't speak English.
So? Greta replies.
Maybe the sign could be a secret password that he won't understand.
Molly says.
Like what?
Greta asks. Fat barramundi? Molly says confidently. Fat barramundi. Greta repeats, dubious.
Why fat barramundi? Was just thinking about how much I'd go some fried fish for dinner.
Greta nods.
Fat barramundi,
Molly says.
No way a Jap flyboy would have eaten a fat barramundi before. Okay, Molly, Greta says. The sign is a secret password, and the secret password is fat barramundi.
Molly nods. Greta marches on, frustrated by their circumstances, the length of the grass scratching her legs, the humidity of the wetlands, the Japanese serviceman with a pistol walking behind her. Molly walks through the grass with a spring in her step, privately thrilled by the unexpected third-party turn in her quest.
Greta,
Molly whispers.
Yes, Molly. Would Mangrove Jack work better as a secret password?
Seen from the orange-red sky above and looking down closer in and closer in, they are three wanderers, crossing a vivid floodplain, cut by sinuous rivers and wide freshwater channels, dotted with lily-fringed waterholes. The sun low and honeyed, the man in the Japanese military uniform at the back of the group stopping every so often in his tracks to breathe the wild floodplain deep inside him, to take in the vision of all this wild green life. By the edge of a Clearwater billabong, he pauses briefly to smell a floating vine flower, the kangkong, with its white and pink flowers shaped like trumpets. The intoxicating scent and the depth of the pink colour that deepens and darkens inside the flower's wide throat. It makes him laugh.
What's he laughing at?
Molly asks. He's a nut, Greta says. Yukio turns a full circle on his feet, taking in his setting. He raises his palms to the sky, smiling. He wonders for a moment if this very floodplain is Takamonahara, the plain of high heaven, and he crossed into it somehow the moment he left his war brethren flying over Darwin. A part of him surely died back there in that bomb-ravaged town, and maybe that was the part of him that broke prematurely through the gates of the afterlife, and this sweltering, primordial, vine-strewn utopia is where Nara waits for him.
Maybe it's the war,
Molly says.
What do you mean?
Greta asks.
It messes with their heads, Molly says. I once saw Bluey Schofield acting like this out front of the Vic. He was raving about seeing things on the Somme, and then he'd smile at a passing pigeon like it was some kind of angel from heaven.
Across the plain, a troop of 7 dancing brolgas perform a kind of ballet on the grass, and their will to move, their need to share their strange beauty like this, makes Yukio's bottom lip fall. He laughs again. Magoto! He hollers, in their honour. He claps his hands. An ovation. A pair of masked lapwing birds fly over his head, and he nearly falls on his backside, trying to maintain his skyward view of their strange, bright yellow caruncles, which cover their faces like they are wearing yellow pilot's helmets, and the side flaps are oversized and hanging from the bird's spear-like beak. And he laughs. Migoto! Further on, Yukio spots an aquatic frog, with its legs glued to a floating lily pad, and he plants one foot in the marshy pond to inspect its wide yellow eyes.
Mikoto,
he whispers. The frog's green and brown skin resembles a perfect leaf that wraps around its body like a tailored suit. Then, the frog leaps to a neighbouring lily pad, and the fallen pilot nods in thanks, clapping his hands. Later, by a flowing freshwater channel, closer to the sandstone plateaus, he stops to marvel at a water python speeding across leaf-strewn ground to the safety of a crack-filled rock wall dividing a row of eucalyptus. The snake is 3 meters long and its back is black and brown, like the rocks Yukio keeps picking up and holding in his hands. But the snake's belly is the colour of full sun. It looks to Yukio like someone must have painted that colour on the snake, vivid yellow oil paint, still wet. But the headstrong snake leaves no winding yellow trail as it moves towards its shelter. The Japanese pilot is so mesmerised by this snake that Greta, who stands within arm's reach of the distracted stranger and has noted the pilot has lowered the handgun to his right thigh, sees an opportunity. "Fat barramundi!" she says, but Molly misses the secret communication because she is standing beside Yukio Miki with her eyes on the leafy ground, equally captivated by the reptile. She smiles at Yukio. "Fat barramundi!" Greta says, louder this time, and Molly finally hears her. But then she turns her eyes to Greta and discreetly shakes her head. No. She lifts her eyes to Yukio, smiling. "Migoto," she says, nodding her head knowingly. "Very, very migoto." And Yukio smiles, and Molly spots for the first time the light in the eyes of the pilot. The warmth in his smile, his innocence. That is a silver light, she tells herself. A silver light for the silver road, if not the silver screen. Greta shakes her head, marches on across the floodplain. Wide spaces between them, walking single file. Greta in front, Molly in the middle, Yukio at the back with his eyes on the woman in the emerald dress. He does not know where the woman is heading, and he wonders if she does not know either. The brown-haired girl seems to walk by instinct, as if something deep inside her is pushing her thin bones forward. Her ramblings made no sense, even when she pointed at the copper pan in her bag and seemed so determined to express the deep meaning of the words etched into its base. Now the girl's feet move faster, as the trio near the edge of the severed sandstone range that spreads across the fringe of the floodplain like a fortress for Greek gods. "We made it to the range!" Molly hollers. The ground changes from boggy grassland to a series of tree-lined rocky inclines shaped like giant whale heads leading to one of the towering sandstone escarpments. The rocky outcrops are slippery to walk up, and Yukio loses his footing several times and has to cling to clumps of weed sticking out of the old rocks. Wide bowls have been carved out of the rock by water and wind. Strange and unsettling things in the earth that Yukio has not seen before. Inside these perfectly smooth and circular hollows are old animal bones and coals from long abandoned fires. Molly spots birds in the tall trees growing in the shadow of the plateau. A red-backed kingfisher, blue-faced honey-eaters. She stops and waves Yukio over, puts a finger to her mouth. Shh. She kneels silently, and Yukio kneels with her, follows the girl's pointing finger to a rock fig growing in a deep crevice. He squints and finds the subject of the girl's fascination, a perfectly still crimson finch, so brilliant and so fragile and so red it might as well be made of ruby. And Yukio hears the girl talking English and realizes quickly she is not talking to him, but to the bird. "Hello, Mr. Finch," she says. "Have you seen Longcoat Bob anywhere around these parts?" Yukio smiles. That name again. Bob. Easy enough to say. "Bob," he says, nodding. Molly nods. "Bob," she confirms. And Yukio and Molly stand as the vivid crimson finch flies from the rock fig and shoots deep into the canyon that stretches out before them between the two grand sandstone plateaus, divided by a freshwater stream that Molly connects in her head to the channels of the floodplain and, way, way back, to the 3 crocodile kings of Candlelight Creek.
"This way,"
she says. Molly sings, "Pennies from Heaven." She sings loud because she wants to hear the echo of her voice climb the canyon walls that are 3 times the height of the Bank of New South Wales building on Smith Street back in town. Yukio cups water with his hand and drinks from the thin, clear stream meandering through the canyon. Molly and Greta collect dry twigs as kindling for a fire they want to have lit before nightfall.
"Bing Crosby,"
Molly explains to Yukio, despite his lack of understanding.
"Dottie Drake plays Bing all day in her hair salon. I've always liked Pennies from Heaven. It's a song about sky gifts. Bing says the clouds are filled with pennies, and whenever it rains, the coins fall from the sky. So you shouldn't be afraid of storms, because them storms are what shake all the pennies from the clouds. And actually, would be wise to walk outside with our umbrellas upside down."
Molly has a thought, and it stops her in her tracks.
"Do you reckon the hair salon is still there, Greta? I hope Dottie got out before the bombs hit."
Greta keeps her head down, searching a rock platform now for thicker logs. She moves closer to Molly.
"You reckon anything's left at all back in town?"
Molly asks.
"Do you reckon anyone got—" "Molly, shut your trap for a second and listen to me," Greta whispers. "When the fire starts, you give this fella a nice big can of that corned beef in your bag. We'll get him nice and cosy, and the minute he drops off to sleep, we'll grab that gun and run like hell." "I don't think he's going to hurt us, Greta,"
Molly says.
"He's a good one. I can see it all over him."
Molly looks over her shoulder to the stream where Yukio is staring at the water, distant and frozen in his thoughts.
"He's just sad, that's all,"
Molly says.
"I think he wants to help us." "He's a loop at best, and the worst ain't worth thinking about," Greta says. "You just stay awake and wait for my signal." "Fat Barramundi?"
"No, Molly, the signal isn't gonna be bloody Fat Barramundi.
It's going to be me grabbing you by the arm and silently dragging you away from the strange fruit Jap flyboy. You follow?"
Molly nods. "You just be sure to stay awake," Greta says. "Got it?"
"Got it,"
Molly says. Full stars shimmering in a night sky, framed by the canyon walls. 1,000 pinholes of silver light breaking through a blanket of black. A frog croaking somewhere wet. Cicadas in the ghost gums, the kind they call the northern double drummer, creating their great wall of sound. A crackling fire on a flat rock by the canyon stream, and on one side of that fire sits Greta Mays, with her knees tucked up to her chest and looking through the fire at the Japanese pilot sitting on the other side, who's scooping salty wet beef from a roughly cut open tin. And soundtracking all of this night sky star-wrapped scene is the relentless snoring of Molly Hook, the obnoxious nose and throat rattle of it bouncing between the canyon walls. Greta assesses the snoring girl and rolls her eyes. Molly lasted 30 minutes by the fire before she was dead to the world, and now she sleeps, deep and loud, turned on her side on the flat rock, knees pulled to her chest for warmth, arms over her shins. It's cool, and getting cooler in the bottom of the canyon. Greta turns back to the pilot. He's still stuffing his face with soggy canned beef, licking his fingers. No helmet and goggles on his head now. His hair is black and military cut, short and neat. The pistol rests on the flat rock by his right knee. Yukio notices Greta staring at him. He stops eating. He offers her the open can of beef. "You?" Greta shakes her head, looks away, repulsion in that headshake. Yukio turns to Molly. The brown-haired girl who likes to talk is finally speechless, yet she makes noise even in her sleep. He smiles. He sees that she is shivering in her sleep. He places his near-empty can of beef down by his side and stands and walks softly over to her. "What are you doing?" Greta asks protectively. "Get away from her." Yukio does not stop. He unbuttons his flight jacket. It's rust-coloured, made of a cotton and silk blend, thick and heavy. A blue chrysanthemum has been stitched into the jacket sleeve, the sacred mark of the Japanese naval aviator. He wears only a plain white t-shirt now, tucked tight into a thick brown military belt and pants. The shirt hugs his body, and his body is all bone and muscle. A body of pure military means, lean, fit, and useful. He kneels down and gently lays the flight jacket over the gravedigger girl. He walks back to his place at the fire, picks up his soft leather helmet, fur-lined and insulating. Then he walks back to Molly and, carefully lifting her head up briefly from the slab of hard sandstone, gently slips it onto her head. Molly gives a loud snort, turns over onto her other side, instinctively pulls the welcoming jacket tight around her body, and nestles into the flight helmet. Yukio nods. He offers a half-smile as he turns back to Greta. "Imusume," he says. Greta stares at him, puzzled. He looks back down at Molly. The brown-haired girl has a good heart. He points at her. "Imusume," he says again, tapping his own heart. Greta nods with a vague sense of understanding. Yukio nods. He sits back down by the fire opposite Greta and warms his hands. A long silence between the man and the woman. No sound but the cicadas and the crackle of burning eucalypt logs. Yukio taps his chest. "Yukio," he says. He taps his chest again. "Yukio." Greta nods. She taps her chest reluctantly with her forefinger. "Greta," she says. Yukio repeats the name. Greta. He nods and taps his chest again. "Yukio Miki," he says. Greta takes a pained inhale. She nods, tapping her chest. "Greta Mays," she says. "Greta Mays," Yukio repeats. He taps his chest again. "Yukio Miki. Kara, Sakai, Japan." Greta nods. "Greta Mays, Sydney, Australia." Yukio nods, smiling. "Sid, ini," he says. Greta nods. She slides her backside closer to the fire, lies down on her side, rests the side of her face on her cupped hands. She still feels the bruising around her eye, but the aching in her head is easing. She stares into the fire, and the fire plays the flickering film reel of her life and how she left Sydney on a train as a young woman with a bag of clothes, and then the train of her life ran off the tracks and careened into the arms of Aubrey Hook, and those arms of Aubrey Hook are wailing her now. Fists against the bones in her head, and she closes her eyes to sleep because sleep is the only thing that will stop those fists from flailing. But when she closes her eyes, she sees something worse. A sterile white hospital room, and a baby in her arms, and the baby wailing. "Shh," Greta whispers. "Shh." But the baby's wailing only grows louder, and Greta cries now too. Greta Baumgarten in her mind, and Greta Mays on a cold, hard bed of sandstone. Both those women crying. "Tori no hoshi," Yukio says softly into the night air. Greta opens her eyes to see Yukio with his right arm pointing to the night sky. "Tori no hoshi," he says, and he smiles. The bird's star story. The story of the brightest star he sees, shining up there far beyond the canyon walls. That's a good story to tell by a fire like this one. The Nighthawk star story. The ugly nighthawk, who fell ugly on the inside because all the other birds in the forest said he was ugly on the outside. They said his feathers had no colour, only the reddish-brown colours of dirt and clay. The crimson finch he saw today. That bird reminded Yukio of the nighthawk. The other birds said the nighthawk's beak was flat and useless and pointed out that his mouth was so wide it stretched from one ear to the other. And the nighthawk was so saddened by his ugliness, he decided to leave the forest. But when he left, he was still sad, and he thought the only thing that could take his sadness away was to leave the earth altogether. And so he flew high into the blue sky, so high that his beak bumped into the sun. And the nighthawk told the sun he was fixing to die. And the bird asked, "Sun, will you take me with you when you fall into the night? I'll be glad to die in your fire, and my ugly body will give out one single flash of light as it burns, and that light will be beautiful." "I cannot take you with me," the sun said. "I belong to the day, my friend, and you belong to the night. You need to fly on, Nighthawk. Fly on to the stars, who belong to the night like you." And the bird flew on, flapping its tiring wings, up, up, up into the night sky until it ran into 3 young night stars who were talking among themselves. "Excuse me," said the bird, "I'm wondering if you could take me with you when you leave before daylight." But the 3 young stars laughed at the bird and said they would never welcome such an ugly, colourless creature into their star sky. The nighthawk wept, but it flew on, higher into the night sky, so high that it was soon soaring above every star. The nighthawk looked down upon the stars now, instead of looking up at them, and it felt proud to have soared so high. Surely higher than any other forest bird had ever flown. But then the nighthawk's wings stopped flapping, because it was exhausted by its journey from the forest to the stars, and its eyes closed, and the bird fell asleep, just as its tired wings made their final flaps. The bird died in that moment, but it did not fall from the sky, for it was then reborn, transformed. That night, back on earth and deep in the forest, the pretty birds who had laughed and joked about the ugly nighthawk were stunned to see a new star in the sky. It sat higher and burned more brightly than any other star, and inside it twinkled every colour of the spectrum. It was the prettiest thing the forest birds had ever seen. "Tora no hoshi," Yukio says to the night sky. "The stars?" Greta nods. "Tora no hoshi," the pilot says, nodding. Greta watches the pilot lie flat on his back, his eyes fixed on the stars in the night sky. The pinholes of light are losing the war between the stardust and the darkness, but the stardust won't give up the fight. "The stars," Yukio whispers, and his heavy eyes close to darkness. Molly wakes with a hand on her face. "Shh!" whispers Greta. The actress stands silently, a forefinger to her lips. Molly rubs her eyes, embers in the fading fire. She can see her duffel bag hanging over Greta's shoulder. Molly stands silently. Greta takes several light-footed steps in her saddle shoes across the flat rock to where Yukio sleeps on his side, close to the edge of the fire, arms across his chest, hugging his body tight. The handgun rests behind his back on the rock. His family sword rests by the handgun. Then the pilot shifts his position, turns hard to his other side, back to the handgun, and then his head shakes rapidly in his sleep. Greta stands still, watching him. Molly freezes. "Shh!" Greta whispers again, her eyes fixed on the pilot, who appears to be struggling with the dreams inside his head. Then a sharp and aching "Ugh!" emerges from his lips and seems to hurt him. He jolts in his sleep. He shudders in his sleep. Then he turns back to the fire, eyes shut. "Ugh!" he groans again, and that sound seems to come from deep within his corned beef gut. It's a rumble, a pain rattle, the echo of 1,000 sorrows, and it makes Molly move closer to the pilot. She sees that his whole body is shaking now.
"What's wrong with him?"
Molly whispers. "Shh!" Greta snaps back sharply, silently stepping over Yukio's body and bending down to pick up the handgun. She shakes her head towards the dark valley running out of the canyon and deeper into the black scrub.
"Come on,"
Greta whispers.
"We can't just leave him out here in the bush like this,"
Molly says. "Shh!" Greta says again. She grits her teeth, nodding furiously at the gravedigger girl, then runs a finger along her neck, and that finger turns into a fist and a thumb, pointing up the canyon. She silently mouths her final word.
"Now!"
Molly turns back to Yukio. He's sweating. There's a war going on inside him, and Molly knows the strange and warm-faced pilot is losing that war, like Darwin is losing a war north of here, back by the sea. Molly has seen her father shake like this. Deep shaking. Involuntary. She knew when she saw that shaking that her father had a trouble inside him that could not be soothed from the outside. All she could do was pat her father's forehead and whisper, "Shh, Dad. Shh. It's all right, Dad." What she meant was that she knew she was only 10 or 11 or 12, but everything was going to be all right, as long as they had each other. Then she sees her father in her mind, limbless and bomb-torn, and wedged inside the fork of a tree. She closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, she removes the aviator jacket and places it over Yukio. "Shh," she whispers into his ear, and the sound seems to still the pilot. So she whispers again. "Shh. It's all right. It's all right." She is still wearing his flight helmet when she turns and follows Greta into the forest darkness that waits beyond the canyon. And she is still wearing it when they stumble blindly through a thick infestation of thorny mesquite trees with branches that seem to reach out to Molly and tear at her exposed skin. The earth rebels, she tells herself. It rebels against wrongdoers, she tells herself. Sam knew this. Molly knew this. The earth in rebellion. Buffalo charging at cars. Crocodiles stalking girls in creeks. Tree branches reaching out to strangle her dead in the dark. She's still wearing the pilot's helmet when she walks face first through the circular web of a golden orb spider. The web is made of golden yellow silk, and its miraculous architecture is so grand that it stretches the whole way across the path they follow through moonlit monsoon vine thickets. The girl feels the web's maker, a female spider with a body 3 inches long, land on the back of the pilot's leather helmet, and she leans forward, knowing she's in the wrong here. Knowing that the golden orb spider spent hours in this forest darkness constructing her grand silk insect trap, only to have it destroyed by the careless head of a Darwin gravedigger girl. She puts a light hand to the back of her head, brushing the spider off the helmet. "I'm sorry," she says, as much to the spider as to the Japanese pilot they left back in the canyon. The foreigner, in as foreign a land as he could ever fall into from the sky. If the earth can rebel, she tells herself, then the sky can too. A sky gift rejected. A sky gift left behind. A sky gift abandoned in a canyon. "We shouldn't have left him back there," Molly says. Greta holds Bert the shovel in her hands, waves it at the darkness before her, batting down branches and vines. "He's been dropping bombs on folks across the world," Greta says. "Stop sparing thoughts for the bastard who just blew half your house to Adelaide." "The sky wanted us to meet him," Molly says. "Is that right?" Greta replies. She stops and turns to Molly, agitated, tired. "And I guess the sky wanted your father blown to bits." Molly stops now too. She wonders who, indeed, wanted that to happen to her father. Her father, Horace, the good and the bad one, blown across the yard and lodged in the fork of a tree. Blood dripping from his thigh, where the rest of his leg used to be. Who did ask for that? She'd asked for another gift from the sky. Then the sky had rained Japanese bombs. Who did ask for that? They beat a loose path through a fringe of red ash trees that meets a rocky incline where a solitary pandanus tree stands, its wedge-shaped bright red fruits looking like the kinds of jewels Aubrey and Horace Hook would rob from Hollow Wood's dead. When their improvised course takes them higher across sandstone ranges and rises, the moon throws enough light down for the actress and the gravedigger girl to see the land that unfolds before them. Then they follow a clearer path through the trees and the sandstone gullies and outcrops. Sam Greenway might have walked this way once, Molly tells herself. His people have walked this path for millennia, and so have the short-eared rock wallabies and the black-footed tree rats and the short-beaked echidnas and the golden bandicoots. And now, the gravedigger girl and the actress. The moon is silver, and the stars surrounding it dutifully assemble into shapes for Molly. An arrow, an elephant, a warrior's shield, a gravestone. Her mother, Violet, made her promise she would make her life beautiful and grand and poetic, and she promised her mother that she would write her own epitaph, that she would live a life that could be written about with ease on an upright slab of limestone. Now that night sky whispers to her, "What would it say, Molly? And be honest, I'm not like that fool the day sky. I know if you're lying." "I know exactly what it will say," Molly whispers. Here lies brave orphan Molly Hook, who lost her mother and father before the age of 13, and set off into the northern Australian wilderness in search of a sorcerer named Longcoat Bob. But what she was really searching for were answers to questions she could not bring herself to ask. In a pitiful act of blind vengeance, Molly bludgeoned Longcoat Bob to death with a blood-coloured rock she believed was her mother's true heart, turned to stone. Molly died many years later, riding her bicycle off a Catherine Gorge cliff face, aged 122. She is survived by her husband, Sam, and their handsome and rich twin sons, Tyrone and Gary. Molly stops and reaches into her duffel bag to check the blood-coloured stone is still inside. But really, she doesn't need to check, because she knows she carries her mother's heart inside her duffel bag, as much as she carries it inside her chest. Greta moves on ahead in the dark. "Is that really your plan, Molly?" asks the night sky. "Maybe," Molly says, "if he doesn't cooperate." Molly closes the bag and walks on again. "You're going to crack that rock over Longcoat Bob's skull?" "Yep," Molly says, "if I have to." "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, Molly." "Really?" she says. "Really? You could have fooled me. My whole life I've been doing things I don't want to do." Greta emerges from the darkness. "Who are you talking to?" she asks. "I'm talking to the sky," Molly says. "Oh, good," Greta says, straight-faced. "I thought you'd lost your marbles for a second there, but you were only talking to the sky." This is the end of CD 6. The book continues on CD 7.